The coffee mug shattered against the floor. The exact moment three men in leather jackets grabbed the teenager by her hair and started dragging her toward the back exit. Her screams tore through the morning calm of the diner, high, desperate, primal. Plates clattered, chairs scraped, every head turned, but nobody moved. Nobody except the woman in the corner booth with the German shepherd at her feet. She looked up slowly, and something in her eyes went ice cold, military cold, the kind of cold that didn't need to raise its voice. She stood. The dog stood. And in that single breath before everything exploded, the three men made the worst mistake of their lives. They laughed at her. Before we dive in, I need you to do something for me. Stay with this story until the very end. If it grabs you, hit that like button and drop a comment with the city you're watching from. I want to see just how far this story can travel. Now let's begin. The morning had started like any other in Rivermont, a mid-sized city where nothing much happened and people liked it that way. Lauren Hayes sat in the corner booth of Eddie's diner, the same booth she'd claimed every Tuesday and Thursday for the past 8 months since moving here. Her scrubs were wrinkled from a double shift at Mercy General Hospital, her blonde hair pulled back in a messy bun, and her eyes carried the particular exhaustion that came from 12 hours in the emergency room watching people bleed, break, and sometimes not make it home. She picked at her scrambled eggs without much interest. Across from her plate, a cup of black coffee had gone lukewarm. She didn't mind. Coffee was coffee. Sleep was a memory. At her feet, resting with the calm discipline of a trained professional, lay Atlas, a German shepherd with intelligent dark eyes and a coat that gleamed even under the diner's fluorescent lights. He wasn't a pet. He was a partner. And right now, he was the only living thing in Rivermont who knew what Lauren really was. To everyone else, she was just another healthcare worker. Tired, quiet, kept to herself, tipped well, said please and thank you. They had no idea. The diner hummed with the usual morning soundtrack, sizzling bacon, the clatter of dishes, low conversations, the occasional laugh. Eddie Caruso, the owner, a thick-shouldered man in his 60s with a Brooklyn accent that hadn't faded in 30 years, worked the grill while his daughter Marissa handled the counter. She was 19, bright-eyed, studying nursing at the community college. She'd asked Lauren about the profession once, and Lauren had given her the sanitized version, rewarding, challenging, emotionally demanding. She didn't mention the other skills she'd learned, the ones that had nothing to do with IVs and sutures. Lauren glanced at her watch, 09:15. She had 6 hours before her next shift, enough time to go home, shower, maybe sleep if her brain would let her. Atlas shifted slightly, his ears twitching. He'd sensed something before she did, a change in the air, a tension creeping into the room like smoke under a door. The bell above the entrance chimed. 3 men walked in. Lauren didn't look up immediately, but her peripheral vision cataloged them instantly. Muscle builds, leather jackets despite the warm weather, boots designed for intimidation, not comfort. The way they moved, too loose, too confident, like they owned any space they entered. The lead guy had a scar running from his left eyebrow to his cheekbone. The second was taller, shaved head, neck tattoos crawling up from his collar. The third hung back, younger, nervous energy, hands in his pockets. They weren't here for breakfast. Atlas's ears went flat, but he didn't move, didn't growl, didn't react. Because Lauren hadn't given the command. She kept her gaze on her eggs, but every sense had just gone to high alert. Old instincts didn't fade. They hibernated, and right now, hers were waking up fast. The scarred man scanned the room with the slow arrogance of someone used to people looking away. His eyes lingered on Marissa behind the counter, and something ugly flickered across his face. He said something to the other two, too low for Lauren to catch, and they laughed. Marissa didn't laugh. She stiffened, hands gripping the counter. Eddie looked up from the grill, his expression darkening. "Can I help you, gentlemen?" The scarred man smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "Yeah, we're here to collect." "Collect what?" "Your daughter." The diner went very still. Eddie's face flushed red. "Get the hell out of my restaurant." "Can't do that, Eddie." The man's voice was casual, almost friendly. "See, your daughter's got a debt, and we're here to make sure it gets paid." Marissa's voice cracked. "I don't owe you anything. Your boyfriend does. And since he skipped town, guess who gets to cover it?" The scarred man took a step toward the counter. "So you're going to come with us. Quietly. or we make this real unpleasant for everyone here." Eddie moved to block him, but the bald man was faster. He grabbed Eddie by the collar and slammed him against the grill. Eddie shouted in pain, the hot surface searing through his shirt. "Dad!" Marissa screamed. The younger guy vaulted over the counter and grabbed her by the arm. She fought, thrashing, but he was stronger. He dragged her toward the door while she clawed at his hands, her screams rising in pitch. Lauren's coffee mug hit the floor. The sharp crack of ceramic breaking cut through the chaos. Every head in the diner turned toward her. She stood slowly, deliberately. Atlas rose beside her, a shadow of controlled power. "Let her go," Lauren said. Her voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It carried the weight of absolute certainty, the kind of tone that didn't expect to be questioned. The scarred man turned, eyebrows raised. Then he laughed. "You gotta be kidding me." "Let her go," Lauren repeated, quieter this time, colder. Marissa was still struggling, tears streaming down her face. The younger guy had her by both arms now, lifting her off her feet as she kicked and screamed. The other customers sat frozen, some staring, some looking away, all of them doing nothing. The scarred man took a step toward Lauren, his smile widening. "Sweetheart, you look like you just worked a 12-hour shift and you're about to fall over. Sit down. Eat your eggs. This doesn't concern you." Lauren didn't blink. "Last chance." He laughed again, louder this time, playing to the room. "You hear this? She thinks she's gonna—" Lauren moved, years of training compressed into a single fluid motion. She closed the distance between them in 2 steps. Faster than he expected, faster than anyone expected. Her hand shot out, fingers locking around his wrist as he reached for her. She twisted, rotating his arm at the joint, using his own momentum against him. His body followed the physics, his balance breaking, and she drove him down hard. His knees hit the floor with a crack that made people wince. The entire sequence took less than 3 seconds. The room went dead silent. The scarred man gasped, his face pressed against the tile, his arm bent at an angle that promised a world of pain if he moved wrong. "What the—" Atlas stepped forward, positioning himself between Lauren and the bald man who'd released Eddie and was now staring at her with a mix of shock and fury. The dog didn't bark, didn't snarl, just stood there, absolutely still, absolutely ready. The younger guy still had Marissa, but he'd frozen, his eyes wide. Lauren's voice cut through the silence like a blade. "I said let her go." The bald man recovered first. "You just made a big mistake, lady." He started toward her, hands curling into fists. Atlas moved. Not an attack, a controlled interception. He positioned himself directly in the man's path, lips pulling back just enough to show teeth, a low rumble building in his chest that vibrated the air. The man stopped. "Call him off," he said, but his voice had lost some of its edge. "Let the girl go," Lauren replied. "Then we'll talk." The younger guy looked at the scarred man, still pinned to the floor. "Vic, what are we—" "Shut up!" Vic snarled, then sucked in a breath as Lauren applied just a fraction more pressure to his trapped arm. Okay, Marco, let her go." Marco hesitated, then released Marissa. She stumbled away from him, running to her father. Eddie wrapped his arms around her, his face pale, his back still red where the grill had burned him. Lauren didn't release Vic. "Now you're all going to walk out of here, slowly, and you're never coming back." Vic's laugh was strained, edged with pain and fury. "You have no idea who you're messing with, no idea what's going to happen when—" The sirens cut him off. Distant at first, then rapidly growing louder. Multiple vehicles, moving fast. Vic's eyes widened. "What did you—" "I didn't call anyone," Lauren said quietly. But her gaze flicked to Eddie, who had his phone out, his hand shaking but his thumb pressed firmly on the screen. The sirens were close now, too close. Then they stopped. Car doors slammed. Footsteps. Not regular police footsteps. These were heavier, more disciplined, moving in coordinated patterns. The diner door crashed open. 4 figures in tactical gear flooded in, weapons drawn but pointed low, moving with the precision of a unit that had trained together for years. Black uniforms, body armor, no local police insignia. Behind them, 2 more men in suits. The lead tactical operator, a woman with sharp features and captain's bars on her collar, swept the room with professional efficiency. Her gaze landed on Lauren, still holding Vic to the floor, and something flickered across her face. Surprise. Recognition. And then something that looked almost like respect. "Ma'am," the captain said carefully, "you can release him. We'll take it from here." Lauren held Vic for one more second, then let go and stepped back. He scrambled to his feet, face flushed with rage and humiliation. "These people attacked us," he shouted, jabbing a finger at Lauren. "She assaulted me. Arrest her." The captain didn't even look at him. Her eyes stayed locked on Lauren. "Captain Hayes?" The name dropped into the room like a stone into still water. Ripples of shocked silence spread outward. Every single person in the diner turned to stare at Lauren. She didn't react, just stood there in her wrinkled scrubs and messy bun, exhaustion still written across her face, but something else visible now in the set of her shoulders, the steadiness of her gaze. One of the suited men stepped forward. Lauren Hayes, former captain, 82nd Combat Support Hospital. 3 tours, Silver Star recipient, specialized trauma surgeon attached to special operations units in classified theaters. Marissa's mouth fell open. Eddie stared. The other customers looked between Lauren and the tactical team like they'd just watched someone transform into a completely different person. Vic's face had gone pale. "Wait, what?" The captain gestured sharply, and 2 of her team moved in on the 3 men. "Victor Russo, Marco DeSanto, James Klein, you're under arrest for attempted kidnapping, assault, extortion, and about 15 other charges we're going to enjoy filing." "This is bullshit!" Vic shouted as they cuffed him. "You can't just—" "Actually," the suited man said mildly, pulling out a badge. "We can. Federal Task Force. We've been tracking your organization for 6 months. Kidnapping across state lines tends to get our attention." He glanced at Lauren. "Though I'll admit, we didn't expect you to do our job for us." Lauren finally spoke, her voice still calm. "I was just having breakfast." The faintest smile crossed the captain's face. "Of course you were, ma'am." They hauled the 3 men toward the door. Vic twisted in his captor's grip, staring at Lauren like he was trying to reconcile the tired nurse with whatever he'd just learned. "Who the hell are you?" Lauren picked up her bag. Atlas moved to her side, perfectly controlled, perfectly calm. "Nobody important," she said quietly. "Just someone who doesn't like bullies." The tactical team filed out, suspects in custody. The suited men followed. The captain paused at the door, looking back at Lauren. "It's good to see you landed somewhere safe, Captain. Though maybe try to avoid hand-to-hand combat before your morning coffee next time." Lauren's lips twitched, almost a smile. "I'll take it under advisement." Then they were gone. The sirens started up again, fading into the distance. The diner remained frozen. 20 people staring at the woman they thought they knew. Eddie found his voice first. You were in the military?" "A long time ago," Lauren said. "You saved my daughter." "Anyone would have." "No." Marissa's voice was shaky but firm. "No one else moved, just you." Lauren looked around the room. At the customers still sitting in their booths, forks halfway to their mouths. At the waitresses standing motionless behind the counter. At all the people who had watched a teenage girl being dragged out of a diner and done absolutely nothing. "Fear makes people freeze," she said quietly. "It's not their fault." But the weight of those words hung in the air like an accusation anyway. Eddie cleared his throat. "Your breakfast is on the house. Forever. I mean it. You never pay here again." Lauren shook her head. "Not necessary." "Please." Marissa stepped forward, tears still wet on her cheeks. "Please let us do something. You could have just sat there, like everyone else." The room flinched at that. Lauren pulled out her wallet, left 2 20s on the table, way more than the meal cost, and headed for the door. Atlas walked beside her, his training evident in every controlled step. As she reached for the handle, Marissa called out, "Why did you help me? You don't even know me." Lauren paused, looked back. "I know what it's like," she said, "when nobody stands up." Then she was gone. The diner erupted the moment the door closed behind her. "Did you know? A captain? Silver Star, that's..." She took that guy down like it was nothing. 3 tours. And we just thought she was a nurse. Eddie stood very still, staring at the empty booth where Lauren had been sitting, at the 2 20s on the table, at the broken coffee mug still on the floor. Marissa pressed against his side, still shaking. "Dad, what if she hadn't been here?" He didn't answer. Couldn't answer. because they both knew exactly what would have happened. Outside, Lauren walked to her car, a 10-year-old Honda Civic that had seen better days. Atlas jumped into the passenger seat with practiced ease. She sat behind the wheel but didn't start the engine immediately. Her hands were trembling, not from fear, from adrenaline crash, from muscle memory kicking in after years of forcing it down, from the part of her that had learned to survive in places where hesitation meant death. And that part didn't just disappear because you came home and put on scrubs and pretended to be normal. She took a slow breath, then another. Atlas leaned over and rested his head on her shoulder. She scratched behind his ears, focusing on the simple repetitive motion until her heart rate dropped back to baseline. "We're supposed to be keeping a low profile," she murmured. Atlas huffed. "Yeah, I know. Not really our strong suit." She finally started the car and pulled out of the parking lot. In her rearview mirror, she could see people gathering on the sidewalk outside the diner, phones out, probably already posting about what had just happened. By tonight, everyone in Rivermont would know. The quiet nurse in the corner booth wasn't who they thought she was. But what they didn't know, what nobody except a very small number of people with very high clearances knew, was why she'd really come to Rivermont. Why she'd chosen this specific city, this specific hospital, this specific nowhere place to try to disappear into normal life. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. Blocked number. She let it go to voicemail, but her jaw tightened because she knew who it was. There were only 3 people who had this number, and 2 of them knew better than to call unless it was an emergency. The third one never called unless it was trouble. Her phone buzzed again. Text message this time. "Saw the news? Very subtle? We need to talk." Lauren deleted the message without responding. She'd left that life behind. The operations, the classifications, the missions that didn't officially exist, and the casualties that never made it into any report. She'd earned her discharge, earned her quiet life. But as she drove through Rivermont's tree-lined streets, past the normal houses with their normal families and their normal problems, a cold certainty settled in her chest. That life wasn't done with her. It never would be. Because people like Victor Russo didn't operate in a vacuum. They had connections, organizations, resources. And now they knew her name, her real name, what she was capable of. Atlas shifted in his seat, sensing her tension. "It's okay, boy," she said softly. "We've handled worse." But even as she said it, her tactical mind was already running scenarios. Russo was small time, muscle for hire, which meant someone bigger was pulling his strings. Someone who now had a problem named Lauren Hayes. Someone who wouldn't appreciate a decorated combat veteran interfering with their business. Someone who might decide to send a message. She pulled into the parking lot of her apartment complex, a modest 2-bedroom unit in a quiet neighborhood. Nothing special, nothing that stood out. Exactly how she wanted it. She was halfway to her door when she noticed it. A black sedan parked 3 spaces down from her usual spot. Tinted windows, government plates. She'd been expecting this. The driver's door opened, and a man stepped out. Late 50s, gray hair, suit that cost more than most people's monthly rent. He had the bearing of someone who'd spent decades giving orders and never doubting they'd be followed. "Captain Hayes," he said. "Or do you prefer Lauren now?" "I prefer to be left alone, Colonel Matthews." He smiled thinly. "We both know that's not going to happen, not after this morning's performance. I stopped a kidnapping. That's what any decent person would do. Any decent person would have called the police. You executed a joint manipulation takedown that's only taught to close-quarters combat specialists." He tilted his head. Muscle memory is a difficult thing to hide. Lauren's hand moved to Atlas's collar, a subtle signal. The dog sat, alert but calm. "What do you want?" she asked. "To remind you that your discharge came with certain conditions. You don't draw attention. You don't engage. You fade into civilian life and stay there. I was having breakfast. You were noticed by the wrong people. And now we have a situation." "We?" Matthew's expression hardened. "Victor Russo works for the Castellano family. Mid-level organized crime, but connected to some very unpleasant international interests. Interests that we've been monitoring. Interests that now have your name, your face, and your service record if they dig even slightly." Lauren felt ice forming in her stomach. "You're saying I'm compromised?" I'm saying you made yourself a target, and targets in your position don't get to retire quietly. He paused. Unless they're willing to help us finish what they started. No. You haven't heard the offer. I don't need to. I'm done. I did my time. I earned my out. Matthew stepped closer, his voice dropping. 3 months ago, a shipment disappeared from a military convoy in Eastern Europe. Classified medical equipment. Experimental. The kind that could be weaponized in the wrong hands. We traced it to a network that moves through this region, through organizations like the Castellanos. He held her gaze. You're already in this, Captain. The only question is whether you help us contain it, or whether we all watch it blow up in our faces. Lauren's mind raced. Experimental medical equipment. That could mean anything from advanced trauma systems to biological agents to things she didn't want to think about. You're asking me to go operational again. I'm asking you to consult, advise. Use your unique skill set to help us locate and recover what was taken before it ends up on a black market auction block or worse. And if I say no? Matthew's expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in his eyes. Then we can't protect you. And when the Castellanos come looking for the woman who humiliated their people and cost them a valuable asset, you'll be handling it alone. He paused. You and your dog against a criminal empire. I like your odds, Captain, but I don't love them. The threat hung in the air between them. Lauren looked at Atlas, at her apartment building, at the normal life she'd been trying so desperately to build, all of it already crumbling. I need time to think. You have 24 hours. After that, we move with or without you. Matthews pulled out a card, set it on the hood of her car. Call me, or don't. But either way, this isn't over. He got back in his sedan and drove away. Lauren stood in the parking lot, the morning sun warm on her face, and felt the weight of inevitability pressing down on her shoulders. She'd known, somewhere deep down, that this day would come. You didn't walk away from the things she'd seen, the things she'd done, the secrets she carried, and just blend into normalcy. The world didn't work that way. Her phone buzzed again. Another blocked number. Another message. You're making waves, Captain. Some people notice waves. Be careful. Not a threat. A warning. From someone who knew exactly what kind of trouble she'd just stepped into. Lauren picked up the colonel's card, stared at it for a long moment, then slipped it into her pocket. 24 hours. She looked down at Atlas. Looks like retirement's going to have to wait. The dog's tail wagged once. Lauren Hayes had spent 8 months trying to be invisible, trying to be normal, trying to forget the things she'd learned in the dark corners of the world where good people did terrible things to keep worse things from happening. But the moment those 3 men grabbed Marissa, the moment she stood up in that diner, she'd torn away the carefully constructed facade. And now there was no putting it back. The quiet nurse was gone. The soldier had returned. And whether she wanted it or not, the war had just followed her home. She unlocked her apartment door with fingers that had finally stopped shaking, Atlas slipping past her into the familiar space they'd shared for 8 months. The apartment was sparse, functional furniture, no photographs on the walls, nothing that spoke of a past or hinted at who she really was. Just the necessities, a place to sleep between shifts, a temporary waypoint in a life that had learned not to put down roots. Lauren dropped her keys on the kitchen counter and moved to the window, pulling back the curtain just enough to scan the parking lot below. The black sedan was gone, but that didn't mean she wasn't being watched. Matthews had resources, the kind that didn't announce themselves with obvious surveillance. Her phone sat on the counter, silent now, but heavy with implications. 24 hours. She had 24 hours to decide whether to walk back into the world she'd fought so hard to leave behind, or face whatever came next alone. Atlas padded over to his water bowl, drinking with the calm efficiency of a working dog who'd learned patience in places where water wasn't always guaranteed. Lauren watched him, feeling the familiar weight of responsibility. She'd gotten him out too, gotten them both out, and now she was considering dragging them both back in. The knock on her door came exactly 3 hours later. Not loud, not aggressive, just 3 measured taps that somehow conveyed authority without threat. Lauren moved to the door, checking the peephole. A woman stood in the hallway, mid-30s, dark hair pulled back in a severe bun, wearing a charcoal blazer over dark jeans. She held up a badge to the peephole, government issue, and Lauren caught the letters before she pulled it back, FBI. She opened the door but left the chain on. "Can I help you?" "Agent Rebecca Torres, Federal Bureau of Investigation." The woman's voice was professional, clipped. "I need to speak with you about this morning's incident at Eddie's Diner." "I already spoke with the tactical team, gave my statement. That was military. I'm civilian oversight. Different jurisdiction." Torres glanced past Lauren into the apartment. "May I come in? This won't take long." Lauren studied her for a beat longer than necessary, reading body language, looking for tells. Torres stood with the balanced stance of someone trained in defensive tactics, but her shoulders weren't rigid, no backup visible in the hallway. Either she'd come alone, or her team was very good at staying hidden. Lauren unhooked the chain and stepped aside. Torres entered, her gaze sweeping the apartment with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd learned to catalog a room in seconds. Her eyes lingered on Atlas, who sat near the couch, watching her with alert interest. "Service dog?" Torres asked. "Partner?" Torres nodded, accepting that without question. She moved to the small dining table, pulled out a chair without asking permission, and sat. The casualness of it was deliberate, establishing comfort, building rapport. Standard interview technique. Lauren remained standing. "What do you need to know that wasn't in my statement?" Torres pulled out a slim tablet, tapped it twice. "Your statement was very thorough. Textbook, actually. Clean timeline, precise details, no emotional language. Almost like you'd written incident reports before." She looked up. "Professionally, I mean." "I was in the military. Paperwork was part of the job." "Combat support hospital, according to your file. Trauma surgeon, 3 tours, multiple commendations." Torres swiped through something on the tablet. "Though your file gets very thin after your second deployment, whole sections redacted, black ink everywhere." Lauren said nothing. "The interesting thing," Torres continued, "is that trauma surgeons don't usually receive training in close-quarters combat disarmament techniques. But you dropped Victor Russo like you'd done it 1,000 times. Muscle memory, that precise doesn't come from a weekend self-defense course." "I had good instructors." Torres smiled slightly. "I'm sure you did. Captain Hayes, I'm not here to dig into classified operations. That's above my clearance and honestly above my interest level. I'm here because Victor Russo, Marco DeSanto, and James Klein are small fish, enforcement muscle for the Castellano crime family, and the Castellanos don't take losses well. Matthews already gave me that speech." Something shifted in Torres's expression. "Colonel Matthews contacted you." It wasn't a question. Lauren realized her mistake immediately, confirming military intelligence involvement in what should have been a simple civilian law enforcement matter. Torres was better than she looked. "He wanted to ensure I understood the situation," Lauren said carefully. "I bet he did." Torres leaned back in her chair. "Here's what Matthews probably didn't tell you. The Castellano family has been operating in this region for 15 years. Drugs, weapons, human trafficking. We've put away dozens of their people, but the organization keeps regenerating. New faces, same structure. Because the real power doesn't live here. The Castellanos are a franchise. They answer to someone bigger, someone we haven't been able to identify." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because this morning, you didn't just stop a kidnapping. You cost the Castellanos a very specific asset. Marissa Caruso wasn't a random target. Her boyfriend, Tommy Breslin, worked for them. Low-level courier. He skimmed from a shipment 3 weeks ago, then disappeared. The Castellanos were going to use Marissa as leverage to get him back, or make an example if he didn't surface." Lauren felt something cold settle in her chest. She didn't know. Probably not. Tommy kept his extracurriculars quiet. Torres swiped her tablet again. "But now the Castellanos have a problem. Their people got arrested trying to grab her in broad daylight, in front of witnesses, and the person who stopped them turned out to be a decorated combat veteran with skills that are going to make very interesting reading when the defense attorneys get access to the arrest reports. They're going to claim I assaulted them. They already are. Russo's lawyer filed a complaint 2 hours ago. Excessive force, illegal detention, assault, and battery." Torres's smile had no warmth in it. "It won't stick. Too many witnesses, and the federal kidnapping charges bury everything else. But it means you're on their radar now. And people on the Castellano radar tend to have accidents." Atlas shifted position, sensing the tension rising in the room. Lauren moved to the window again, staring out at the parking lot. Normal people coming and going, loading groceries, walking dogs, living lives that didn't include federal agents warning them about organized crime retaliation. "What do you want from me?" she asked quietly. "Matthews wants you operational. I want you safe." Torres stood, moving to stand beside Lauren at the window. "The problem is, those two things might be the same thing right now. The Castellanos are going to move on you. Question is whether you're prepared when they do." "I can handle myself. I saw the surveillance footage from the diner." "I know you can." Torres paused. "But there's handling yourself in a public space with witnesses and law enforcement response time measured in minutes. And then there's handling yourself when they come for you at 3 in the morning and nobody's watching." Lauren turned to face her. "You're trying to scare me into cooperating with Matthews. I'm trying to keep you alive long enough to make your own choice." Torres handed her a card, different from Matthews' civilian agency contact information. "The Bureau can offer witness protection, new identity, relocation, the whole package. You'd have to leave everything behind, including your job. But you'd be safe. Or you work with Matthews. Help locate whatever it is the military lost. Use your access to the Castellano organization, because they're going to make contact, trust me on that, to gather intelligence. And when this is over, maybe you get to keep your life here. Maybe." "That's a lot of maybes." Torres's expression softened slightly. "Yeah, it is, but it's more than most people get in your situation." She moved toward the door, then paused. "For what it's worth, what you did this morning took guts. A lot of people would have looked away. You didn't. That matters. It got me into this mess. It saved a girl's life. Sometimes those two things are the same thing." Torres opened the door, then looked back. "You've got Matthew's timeline, 24 hours. But the Castellanos work faster than bureaucracy. If you're still deciding when they show up, it might be too late to decide at all." Then she was gone. Lauren stood in the silent apartment, 2 business cards on her counter, and a choice that wasn't really a choice at all. She picked up her phone and dialed a number she'd memorized years ago and never forgotten, even though she'd hoped never to use it again. It rang twice before a familiar voice answered. "I was wondering when you'd call." "Sergeant Rivera," Lauren said. "I need a favor." "You need a lot more than that, Captain. I saw the news, very impressive, very loud. Can you get me intel on the Castellano family? Current structure, known associates, operational territory?" There was a pause. "That's not a favor. That's me committing federal crimes." "I know what I'm asking." Another pause, longer this time. Then Rivera sighed. "You pulled me out of that ambush outside Kandahar. Carried me 2 clicks with a sucking chest wound and 3 broken ribs. I owe you my life." "You don't owe me anything." "Yeah, I do. Give me 6 hours. I'll send what I can find through encrypted channels. Same protocols we used overseas." His voice dropped. "Lauren, whatever you're walking into, I know." "No, I don't think you do. The Castellanos aren't insurgents. They don't follow rules of engagement. They don't take prisoners. And they sure as hell don't give second chances. Neither did the Taliban. I survived them. You had a platoon watching your back. Here, you've got a dog and a lot of bad memories." Rivera's concern was genuine, and it cut deeper than any threat. "Please be careful." "Always am." She ended the call before he could argue further. The rest of the day passed in careful preparation. Lauren went to her storage unit across town, a small concrete box that held the few possessions she'd kept from her military service. She unlocked it with a key she'd carried for 8 months and never used, pulling back the rolling door to reveal neatly organized containers. She opened the one marked medical supplies first, but the trauma kits and surgical instruments weren't what she needed. She moved them aside and found the false bottom, pressing the release that revealed the compartment underneath. 2 handguns, military issue, ammunition, a tactical knife, a Kevlar vest that had stopped 2 bullets on her last deployment, and a small locked box containing documents, the kind that proved you existed when official records said you didn't. She hadn't touched any of it since moving to Rivermont. Hadn't wanted to. But need trumped want, and right now she needed to not be a soft target. Lauren loaded everything into a duffel bag, locked the unit, and drove back to her apartment. She took side streets, varied her speed, checked her mirrors constantly. No tails that she could detect, but that didn't mean much. Good surveillance was invisible. Back home, she secured the weapons in her bedroom closet, within reach but out of sight. Then she sat at her laptop and waited for Rivera's data. It arrived at 1800 hours, a heavily encrypted file that took 3 authentication steps to open. When it finally loaded, Lauren found herself looking at a comprehensive dossier that Rivera had clearly pulled from multiple classified databases. The Castellano family structure was more sophisticated than she'd expected. Traditional organized crime, yes, but with corporate efficiency. Territory divided into zones, each managed by a captain who reported up the chain. Enforcement, logistics, finance, all compartmentalized, all insulated. Victor Russo appeared in the enforcement branch, mid-level, exactly as Torres had said. But the names above him were where things got interesting. Anthony Castellano ran the family, at least on paper. But the actual decision-making seemed to flow through his younger brother, Marcus, a man with degrees from Wharton and Georgetown who'd legitimized several family businesses while keeping the illegal operations running in the shadows. Smart, dangerous. Lauren scrolled through known associates and felt her blood run cold. One name stood out, flagged with intelligence markers and classified annotations. Dmitry Volkov, Russian national, former FSB, the modern incarnation of the KGB, now operating as an independent contractor for various criminal enterprises. Specialty, asset recovery and wet work. And according to Rivera's notes, Volkov had been spotted in Rivermont 2 weeks ago, before the kidnapping attempt, before Lauren had intervened, which meant the Castellanos had already escalated their operations here, had already brought in serious muscle for something bigger than collecting debts from a teenage girl. Lauren cross-referenced dates and locations, building a timeline. The military shipment that Matthews mentioned had disappeared 12 weeks ago. Volkov had entered the country 9 weeks ago. He'd been tracked to 3 different cities before appearing in Rivermont 2 weeks ago, following something, or someone. Her phone rang. Unknown number, but the area code was local. She answered without speaking, heavy breathing on the other end. Then a male voice, rough with pain and fear. Captain Hayes? Who is this? Tommy Breslin, Marissa's boyfriend. I heard what you did this morning. Thank you for saving her. Lauren's tactical mind snapped to attention. Where are you? Hiding, but they're close. They're always close. His voice cracked. I need help. I know I don't deserve it, but Marissa, they'll use her to get to me. Even after today, they'll try again. What did you take from them? Silence. Tommy, if you want my help, I need to know what I'm dealing with. It wasn't drugs. It wasn't money. He sucked in a shaky breath. It was a package. Small, heavy, locked. I was supposed to deliver it to a warehouse on the north side, but I got curious. I picked the lock. Lauren felt pieces clicking into place. What was inside? Medical equipment. At least that's what it looked like. Vials, syringes, technical readouts I couldn't understand, but the labels... He paused. They were military, U.S. military, with biohazard warnings. There it was, the missing shipment, the experimental equipment Matthews had mentioned. Where is it now? Lauren asked quietly. Safe, hidden. But the Castellanos know I have it, and they're tearing the city apart looking for me. His voice dropped to a whisper. There's a Russian guy asking questions. Scary guy, professional. He's not like the others. He's... The line went dead. Not disconnected. Cut. Mid-sentence. Lauren immediately tried calling back. The number rang once, then went to a generic voicemail. She was already moving, grabbing her keys, her phone, pulling up the tracking app she'd installed on her work vehicle. If Tommy had called from a landline or a borrowed phone, there might be a way to trace... Her apartment lights went out. All of them. Simultaneously. Not a power outage. The building across the parking lot still had lights. This was targeted. Atlas was on his feet instantly, a low growl building in his chest. Lauren moved to the window, staying to the side, and peered out through the edge of the curtain. 3 vehicles in the parking lot that hadn't been there 10 minutes ago. Dark SUVs with tinted windows. No lights. Engines running. Doors opened. Men stepped out, 6 of them, moving with coordinated precision toward her building. Not police. Not federal agents. These men moved like operators, like people who'd done this before and knew exactly how it would play out. Lauren grabbed her phone and dialed Matthews. He answered on the first ring. Captain Hayes? I'm blown. 6 hostiles approaching my location. Cutting power. Professional operation. Get out, now. I'll have a team there in no time. Lauren was already in her bedroom, pulling the handgun from the closet, checking the magazine. 15 rounds, 1 in the chamber. They're already in the building. She could hear footsteps in the hallway, slow, methodical, checking doors. Atlas stood at her side, every muscle coiled, waiting for commands. There's a safe house, Matthews said urgently. Latitude 42.7. Send it to my phone, I have to move. She ended the call and switched the phone to silent. The footsteps were closer now. She could hear voices, low, speaking in what sounded like Russian. Volkov. He'd found her faster than anyone expected. Lauren moved to her bedroom window, unlocked it as quietly as possible. Second floor, 15-foot drop to the grass below. Manageable. She'd done worse. But Atlas couldn't make that jump safely. The footsteps stopped outside her door. A pause. Then the lock started to turn. Someone was picking it. Professional. Fast. Lauren made a decision that went against every tactical instinct she had. She moved to the apartment door, positioned herself to the side, and waited. The lock clicked open. The door swung inward slowly. A man stepped through, silhouette backlit by hallway lights, weapon drawn and sweeping the room with trained precision. Lauren didn't give him time to adjust to the darkness. She struck from the side, a controlled blow to his weapon arm that sent the gun clattering across the floor. He reacted fast, faster than Russo had been, pivoting and throwing an elbow that she barely dodged. But she'd trained against opponents who were faster, stronger, better. She'd learned to win by being smarter. She used his momentum against him, redirected his weight, and drove him into the wall hard enough to rattle pictures in neighboring apartments. Before he could recover, she had his arm twisted behind his back, her knee pressed into his spine. "Call them off," she hissed. He laughed, actually laughed. "You think I'm in charge?" Footsteps thundered up the stairs, more of them coming. Lauren increased pressure on his arm. "Who sent you?" "Someone who wants what you're going to help us find." His accent was thick, Eastern European. "The girl's boyfriend has something that doesn't belong to him. You're going to help us get it back." "Not a chance." "Then the girl dies. The father dies. Everyone at that diner you care so much about, they all die. Slowly." He shifted his weight slightly. "Or you cooperate, we get our package, and everyone lives. Simple business." The other men were in the hallway now. She could hear them organizing, preparing to breach. Lauren looked at Atlas, then at the window, then back at the man she had pinned. She'd made a mistake engaging, should have run when she had the chance. Now she was trapped. The door exploded inward as 3 men rushed through simultaneously, weapons raised, and Lauren knew she was out of time and out of options. But she'd learned a long time ago that surrender wasn't in her vocabulary. She released the man she'd pinned and dove sideways as the first shot punched through the doorframe where her head had been half a second earlier. Atlas was already moving on her signal, a blur of trained aggression launching at the nearest gunman. The dog's jaws clamped onto the man's weapon arm with devastating precision, the kind of bite force that could crush bone, and the gunman screamed as his pistol clattered to the floor. Lauren rolled behind her couch as 2 more shots splintered the wood above her. Her hand closed around the weapon she'd taken from the first intruder, a Glock 19, familiar weight, full magazine. She came up firing 2 controlled shots that forced the remaining men to take cover in the hallway. "Atlas, out!" she commanded. The dog released immediately and bounded toward the bedroom window she'd already opened. Lauren provided covering fire as she backed toward the same window, her tactical mind calculating angles and timing. 4 hostiles down or suppressed, but the building had only 1 stairwell, and these men were professionals. They'd have the exits covered. She heard Atlas hit the grass outside with a heavy thump and a sharp yelp that sent ice through her veins, but she couldn't stop to check if he was hurt. She was already on his windowsill, twisting to drop feet first just as automatic weapons fire tore through the apartment behind her, the distinctive chatter of an AK variant shredding furniture and walls with indiscriminate violence. The drop was harder than she'd anticipated. Her boots hit wet grass and her ankle rolled wrong, pain shooting up her leg as she collapsed and tumbled. Old injury from Kandahar, never fully healed. Atlas was there immediately, limping but mobile, and she pushed herself up despite the screaming protest from her ankle. Flashlight swept the area from the second-floor window. Voices shouting in Russian. Lauren ran. She made it to the tree line at the edge of the complex before the first bullet snapped past her ear. The parking lot erupted with activity. Engines roaring, doors slamming, men organizing pursuit with military efficiency. These weren't street thugs. Volkov had brought real operators, the kind who'd done this in Chechnya or Syria or whatever black site training ground produced men who hunted humans for a living. Her phone buzzed. Matthews's coordinates loaded automatically into her maps application. 12 miles northwest. Might as well have been 100 the way her ankle was screaming. She cut through backyard, staying low, using cover, Atlas keeping pace despite his own limp. Behind them, flashlight beams swept through the darkness like search towers at a prison break. They had thermal optics. They had numbers. They had vehicles. She had training and desperation. Not enough. Lauren pulled out her phone and dialed Torres. FBI tip line. How may I? It's Hayes. I'm being actively pursued by armed hostiles. My apartment's been shot up and I need immediate law enforcement response at my location. Torres's voice sharpened instantly. Where are you? Cutting through residential area east of Pinewood Apartments. Multiple shooters, automatic weapons, at least 6 tangos. Stay on the line. I'm dispatching units now. But Lauren knew the math. Response time in this neighborhood was 8 to 12 minutes. She had maybe 3 before the net closed completely. She crossed Maple Street at a dead sprint, her ankle threatening to give out with every step, and ducked into the parking lot of a shuttered grocery store. The building had been abandoned for years, windows boarded, but the loading dock and back had a gap just wide enough for her and Atlas to squeeze through. Inside, darkness swallowed them whole. The smell hit immediately: mildew, rot, animal droppings. She moved by feel and faint starlight filtering through broken roof panels, putting distance between herself and the entrance, finding a position behind old shelving units where she could watch the approaches. Atlas pressed against her leg, his breathing heavy but controlled. She ran her hands over him quickly, checking for injuries. Minor cuts, nothing bleeding badly, but he was favoring his left front paw. The drop had hurt him more than he was letting on. Good boy, she whispered. Stay quiet. Her phone screen illuminated her face in the darkness. Torres was still on the line. Units are 3 minutes out, Torres said. Can you stay hidden? Working on it. Hayes, who are these people? Russian contractors, here for the missing military shipment. They know I have information about Tommy Breslin. The boyfriend. He contacted you? Right before they hit my apartment. I think they intercepted the call. Lauren shifted position, trying to take weight off her injured ankle. Torres, they threatened the people at the diner, Eddie and Marissa. If I don't cooperate, we can protect them. Can you? How many safe houses do you have? How many agents? Because these people don't care about witnesses or collateral damage. Silence on the line. They both knew the answer. Vehicle engines outside. Close. Too close. Lauren killed her phone screen and controlled her breathing, slowing her heart rate through sheer force of will, a meditation technique she'd learned when surviving meant disappearing into stillness. The vehicle stopped. Doors opened with mechanical precision. Footsteps crunched across gravel. A voice called out in English, heavily accented but clear. Captain Hayes, you're making this more difficult than necessary. She didn't respond, didn't move. We don't want to hurt you. We want information, simple exchange. You tell us where the package is, we leave. Everyone stays alive. Lauren's hand tightened on her weapon. 15 rounds. Against 6 trained operators with automatic weapons and night vision. The math didn't work. You know, the voice continued closer now, I respect you. What you did this morning at the diner took courage. But courage without wisdom is just suicide. And you're too smart for suicide. Atlas's muscles tensed. He could hear them moving through the building. Systematic clearing pattern, cutting off escape routes. I'm going to make this very simple, the voice said. You have something I need. Information about Tommy Breslin's location. The package he stole belongs to my employer. Return it, and this ends. Refuse. A pause. Well, you saw what happened to others who refused. Lauren's mind raced through scenarios. She could fire, take out maybe 2 before they swarmed her position. Could try to run, but her ankle wouldn't support sustained movement. Could wait for law enforcement, but these men would either vanish before police arrived or kill her and disappear into the night. None of the options ended well. Then her phone vibrated. Text message, unknown number, roof access northeast corner, ladder still intact, move now. No signature, no explanation. Lauren looked up through the darkness toward where the roof should be. Someone was feeding her intelligence, someone with eyes on her position. Rivera? Matthews? Someone else entirely? Didn't matter. It was her only play. She moved, fast and quiet, Atlas following. The northeast corner meant crossing the open floor space, exposing herself to anyone watching the main entrance. But the darkness was complete here, and she knew how to move without sound. She found the ladder by touch, old metal rungs, some rusted, but still bolted to the wall. She holstered her weapon and started climbing, each movement sending fresh agony through her ankle. Atlas waited below, and for a terrible moment she didn't know how to get him up. Another text, leave the dog, I'll extract him. Every instinct screamed against it. Atlas was her partner, her responsibility, but she also knew that tactical decisions meant making impossible choices. Atlas, stay, she whispered. Guard. The dog sat, perfectly still, perfectly disciplined. Lauren climbed. Behind her, flashlight beams swept into the building, voices coordinating in Russian. They were inside now, spreading out, checking corners. She reached the roof access hatch and pushed. Rusted hinges protested but gave way, and she hauled herself onto the flat roof just as shouts erupted below. They'd found the ladder, footsteps pounding up metal rungs. Lauren ran across the roof, ignoring the fire in her ankle, looking for options. The next building was 15 feet away, too far to jump. Fire escape on the east side, but it would put her back at ground level where they could surround her. Headlights swept the street below, multiple vehicles converging, not the Russians. These were civilian cars, unmarked but moving with coordinated precision. They formed a perimeter around the abandoned grocery store in seconds, and Lauren recognized the tactical deployment pattern. Federal Response Team. The roof access hatch behind her slammed open. A man emerged, weapon raised, scanning for targets. He spotted Lauren and raised his rifle. She dropped flat as gunfire split the night, but the shots weren't aimed at her. They were aimed at the vehicles below, suppressive fire that sent federal agents diving for cover. The shooter was trying to create chaos, confusion, an opportunity to extract or eliminate her in the crossfire. Lauren low-crawled toward the edge of the roof and looked down. 3 stories. Straight drop onto concrete, unsurvivable. But there was a dumpster, 10 feet out from the building wall, filled with construction debris from a renovation project that had never finished. Math she didn't like. Trajectory she'd never practiced. Landing zone that might kill her even if she made it. The shooter was advancing across the roof, firing controlled bursts at the agents below. Another text, jump, I've got the angle. Lauren looked at her phone, at the anonymous number, at the message from someone who knew exactly where she was and exactly what she was thinking. She had 2 seconds to decide, trust or die. She jumped. The world turned sideways, gravity claiming her with brutal efficiency. Wind screamed past her ears. The dumpster rushed up to meet her and she twisted midair, trying to control her landing, She hit hard. Pain exploded through her left shoulder as she crashed into garbage bags and broken drywall. The impact drove the air from her lungs and her vision went white, then black, then red at the edges. Something cracked, ribs or collarbone. She couldn't tell through the symphony of agony. But she was alive. Hands grabbed her, pulled her from the dumpster. She tried to fight, but her body wasn't responding correctly. Nerves misfiring, muscles locked in trauma response. Easy, Captain, I'm on your side. The voice was young, male, American, not Russian. She blinked away the pain tears and focused on the face above her. Mid-20s, Hispanic features, tactical gear but no insignia, eyes that had seen combat. Rivera sent me, he said quickly. Name's Martinez, Special Activities Division. We need to move right now. He half-carried, half-dragged her toward a black SUV parked in the alley. The rear door opened and someone pulled her inside while Martinez ran around to the driver's seat. The door slammed. Tires screamed. Lauren's head spun as the vehicle accelerated hard, throwing her against the seat. She tried to sit up, tried to orient herself, but her shoulder screamed protest and nausea rolled through her stomach. Atlas, she managed. Dog secure, a woman's voice said from the front passenger seat. Rivera's team extracted him during the chaos. He's safe. Lauren focused on the speaker. Another operator, female, dark-skinned, calm, professional demeanor despite having just executed what must have been a complex extraction under fire. "Who are you people?" "The ones keeping you alive." The woman glanced back. "Special Activities Division, paramilitary operations. Rivera called in every favor he had to get us here. You're welcome, by the way." Gunfire erupted behind them. The rear window shattered, safety glass turning into a spiderweb of cracks. Martinez swerved hard, cutting through a red light and accelerating onto the highway. "They're pursuing," the woman said, checking her side mirror. "I see them." Martinez's voice was ice calm. "Call it in." The woman spoke into a radio. "Overwatch, this is Ground 2. We have the package and are moving to secondary extraction. Hostile pursuit confirmed, 3 vehicles, automatic weapons hot." A voice crackled back. "Copy Ground 2. Air support is 12 minutes out. Can you maintain?" Martinez glanced at the speedometer, then at the pursuing vehicles. "Affirmative. We'll make it work." Lauren forced herself upright despite the pain. Through the broken rear window, she could see 3 black SUVs weaving through traffic, gaining on them. Professional drivers, willing to take risks that most people wouldn't. "They're not going to stop," she said. "Neither are we." Martinez cut across 2 lanes, took an exit ramp at 70 miles per hour, and merged onto a secondary road. "How badly are you hurt?" "Functional. Shoulders damaged, maybe broken ribs, ankles compromised." "Can you shoot?" "Yes." The woman in the passenger seat turned and handed back a carbine rifle. "Then get ready. This is about to get interesting." They were heading toward the industrial district now. Warehouses and shipping containers creating a maze of metal and concrete. Martinez killed the headlights and drove by starlight alone, navigating through memory or GPS, taking turns that seemed random but gradually opened distance between them and their pursuers. But the Russians adapted fast. They split up, one vehicle maintaining direct pursuit, while the other 2 took parallel streets, trying to box them in. "Professional tactics," Martinez muttered. "These guys have done this before." "Volkov," Lauren said. "Former FSB. He's running the operation." The woman swore softly. "Rivera didn't mention we'd be going against Russian intelligence." "Would it have changed your answer?" A brief smile. "Hell no, but it would have been nice to know." The SUV's engine roared as Martinez floored it down a long straightaway between warehouses. Behind them, one of the pursuit vehicles accelerated to match pace, closing the gap. Lauren watched through the broken window as the passenger window of the Russian vehicle rolled down and a rifle barrel emerged. "Contact rear," she called. The rifle fired, full automatic, bullets stitching across the road and sparking off the pavement. Martinez swerved, but there was limited room to maneuver. Lauren braced herself against the seat, brought up the carbine, and returned fire through the shattered rear window. The recoil sent fresh agony through her damaged shoulder, but she controlled it, aiming for the pursuing vehicle's engine block, walking her shots up the hood. Steam erupted from under the Russian SUV's hood. It swerved hard, lost control, and crashed into a parked shipping container with the sound of crumpling metal and shattering glass. One down, but the other 2 were still coming, and now they knew she could fight back. Martinez took a hard right into a warehouse complex, the SUV's suspension screaming in protest. They were in a narrow alley between buildings now, barely wide enough for the vehicle, concrete walls rushing past on both sides. "Where are we going?" Lauren asked. "Extraction point. Helicopters meeting us at the old Riverside shipping yard. 2 minutes out." 2 minutes. They had to survive 2 more minutes. The second Russian vehicle appeared behind them, its driver showing suicidal confidence as he accelerated into the narrow alley. The third came from a parallel route, appearing on a cross street ahead of them. They were trapped in the corridor. Martinez saw the problem immediately. "Hold on!" He slammed the brakes and yanked the wheel hard, sending the SUV into a controlled skid. The vehicle rotated 90 degrees and smashed sideways through a chain-link gate that exploded into a cloud of metal fragments. They burst into an open lot filled with rusted machinery and old railroad cars. The helicopter was already there, a black Sikorsky sitting on a cleared patch of ground, rotors spinning, side door open. "Go, go, go, go!" Martinez shouted. But the Russian vehicles were right behind them, and now all pretense of subtlety was gone. Automatic weapons fire tore across the open ground, as the Russians committed fully to stopping the extraction. The woman in the passenger seat, Lauren still didn't know her name, kicked open her door and laid down covering fire with a submachine gun, while Martinez did the same from his side. Lauren forced herself out of the rear door, her legs nearly giving out when her damaged ankle hit the ground. 50 feet to the helicopter. Might as well have been a mile. She ran anyway. Bullets whipped past her, kicking up sparks from the machinery around her. She could hear Martinez and the woman firing disciplined bursts, trying to suppress the Russians long enough for... The woman went down. Lauren saw it happen in peripheral vision. A burst caught her in the legs and she collapsed, screaming. Martinez was there immediately, grabbing her, trying to drag her toward the helicopter while still returning fire. Lauren turned back. Every tactical instinct said, keep running, get to the extraction point, survive. Let the operators handle their own. But she'd left too many people behind in too many places. Watched too many bodies loaded onto transports because someone made the smart tactical decision instead of the right human one. She ran toward Martinez and the wounded woman instead of away. Get her to the bird, she shouted, taking up a firing position behind an old rail car. She emptied the carbine's magazine at the nearest Russian vehicle, forcing them to take cover, buying seconds they desperately needed. Martinez didn't argue. He hauled the wounded woman over his shoulder and ran for the helicopter while Lauren changed magazines, her movements automatic despite the pain, muscle memory from 1,000 range drills. The Russians were out of their vehicles now, advancing on foot with tactical precision. 6 operators moving in coordinated pairs, using cover effectively, closing the distance. Lauren's carbine clicked empty. She'd burned through both magazines. The pistol she'd taken from the apartment was still holstered at her waist. 15 rounds, against 6 advancing shooters with automatic weapons. She drew it anyway. The lead Russian operator rounded the rail car where she'd taken cover. She shot him twice, center mass, and he went down. The second operator came from the opposite direction and she pivoted, fired 3 times, heard him grunt, and fall back. 13 rounds left, 4 operators remaining. The math was getting worse. Hayes! Martinez's voice from the helicopter. Move! She ran, firing blindly behind her to discourage pursuit. Her ankle gave out completely and she fell, crashed hard onto the gravel. Felt something tear in her already damaged shoulder. Hands grabbed her jacket collar. Martinez had come back for her, was dragging her across the ground toward the helicopter while the pilot laid down covering fire with a mounted weapon that roared like thunder. They reached the Sikorsky, and willing hands pulled Lauren inside. Martinez dove in after her, and the pilot didn't wait for confirmation. The helicopter lifted immediately, nose tilting forward as it accelerated away from the shipping yard. Lauren lay on the deck, breathing hard, every part of her body competing for which hurt worst. Through the open door, she could see the Russians below, still firing, muzzle flashes lighting up the darkness. Then they were above the range of small arms fire, rising into the night sky, and the gunfire faded to nothing. The wounded woman, her name was Torres, confusingly the same as the FBI agent, though no relation, was being worked on by a medic who'd been waiting in the helicopter. Tourniquets applied, pressure dressings, vital signs checked with practiced efficiency. Martinez slumped against the opposite bulkhead, his tactical vest showing 3 impact points where bullets had hit the armor plate. His face was pale, but he was smiling. "That was way too close," he said. Lauren tried to laugh, but it came out as a cough that sent fresh pain through her ribs. "Thanks for the assist. Thank Rivera. He called in every marker he had for this." Martinez pulled out a radio and spoke into it. "Overwatch, this is Ground 2, package secure, 1 wounded, requesting direct route to..." "Negative," a voice interrupted. Not the radio operator they'd been talking to earlier. This voice had authority. "Ground 2, you're being diverted to alternate location. Coordinates uploading now." Martinez frowned at his GPS unit as new waypoints appeared. "Sir, we have a casualty who needs immediate medical attention." "Understood. Medical team will be standing by at the alternate location." "This isn't a request, Martinez. Someone very important wants to meet Captain Hayes, right now." Lauren forced herself to sit up, ignoring the protests from her body. "Who?" The voice on the radio answered directly. "Captain Hayes, this is General Richard Blackwood, Joint Special Operations Command. I'm told you have information about a missing military shipment and the individuals attempting to recover it. Information that several federal agencies are very interested in. I need you to tell me everything you know. And I need you to tell me right now, because the situation just escalated beyond anything we anticipated. What do you mean, escalated? The package that Tommy Breslin stole, we just confirmed what it contains. And if it falls into the wrong hands, we're looking at a potential mass casualty event. Possibly thousands dead. The helicopter banked hard, changing course, flying fast and low over Rivermont's skyline. Lauren looked out at the city below. Thousands of lights, thousands of homes, thousands of people who had no idea that their lives might depend on what happened in the next few hours. "Talk to me, General," she said. "What exactly are we dealing with?" There was a pause, long enough that Lauren wondered if the connection had dropped. Then Blackwood spoke, and his voice carried the weight of someone delivering a death sentence. Weaponized hemorrhagic fever, genetically modified for enhanced transmission and mortality. It was being transported to a secure research facility for neutralization. The convoy was hit by what we thought was a random theft. Now we know better. Someone knew exactly what they were taking and exactly what it could do. The temperature in the helicopter seemed to drop. "How bad?" Lauren asked. "Worst case scenario? 90% mortality rate. Airborne transmission. No known cure. If it's released in a major population center, we're looking at an extinction-level pathogen." Blackwood's voice hardened. "So, I'll ask you again, Captain. What do you know, and how do we stop this?" Lauren's mind raced. Tommy Breslin had stolen a bioweapon. The Castellanos wanted it back, presumably to sell to the highest bidder. Volkov was here to ensure the transaction went smoothly, and she was the only person who'd had direct contact with Tommy before the Russians intercepted his call. Everyone was hunting one terrified kid who had no idea he was carrying the end of the world in his backpack. "Tommy called me," she said, "right before the attack on my apartment. He said the package was hidden somewhere safe. He didn't specify where." "Can you trace the call?" "The line went dead mid-conversation. I think they intercepted it." Lauren closed her eyes, trying to remember every word of that brief conversation. He mentioned a warehouse on the north side, said he was supposed to deliver there originally. If we can find that location, we're already checking known Castellano properties, but there are hundreds of warehouses in that district. We need more. He was scared, said they were close. That means he's still in the city, probably somewhere he thinks is secure. Lauren thought about the profile. Low-level courier, early 20s, local kid who got in over his head. "General, Tommy's not a professional. He's a college dropout who thought skimming from a delivery would be easy money. He doesn't have the resources for sophisticated hiding. So where would someone like that go? Somewhere familiar, somewhere he feels safe." Lauren opened her eyes. "We need to find out everything about Tommy Breslin. Where he grew up, where he went to school, family connections, favorite locations. He's going to ground in a place that means something to him personally. I'll have my people pull his background immediately." Blackwood paused. "Captain, I'm also authorizing a full tactical response. If the Castellanos or Volkov get to that package before we do, they won't take him alive," Lauren finished. "And if Tommy dies before telling them where it's hidden, the bioweapon could stay lost for weeks, maybe months. Plenty of time for it to degrade or leak or for someone to stumble onto it accidentally." "Yes, that's the nightmare scenario." The helicopter was descending now, approaching what looked like a government building with heavy security, armed guards, vehicle barriers, the works. Not a military base. Somewhere else. Somewhere off the books. "Where are we?" Lauren asked Martinez. "Safe house, joint operations facility. Technically doesn't exist on any map." He checked his weapon, ejected the magazine, and slapped in a fresh one. "If we're dealing with a bioweapon situation, this is where they coordinate response." The helicopter touched down on a rooftop landing pad. The doors opened immediately, and a medical team rushed forward, loading the wounded operator onto a stretcher. Martinez moved to follow, but Lauren grabbed his arm. "My dog! Rivera said he was extracted. He's here. Climate-controlled holding area, being checked by a veterinarian. He's safe." That was something, at least. Lauren let them help her out of the helicopter, her damaged ankle refusing to support weight. A doctor tried to guide her toward a medical bay, but she shook her head. "I need to speak with Blackwood first." "Ma'am, you're injured. I need to stop a bioweapon from killing thousands of people. Medical can wait." The doctor looked like he wanted to argue, but a sharp voice cut through the discussion. "Let her through." A man emerged from the rooftop access door. 60s, military bearing, 3 stars on his collar. General Richard Blackwood in person, and he looked exactly as tired and stressed as someone managing a potential catastrophe should look. He walked straight to Lauren and extended his hand. "Captain Hayes, thank you for your service. Now tell me how we fix this." She shook his hand despite the pain it caused her shoulder. "I need access to Tommy Breslin's background file. I need a tactical team ready to move on my analysis. And I need someone to protect Eddie and Marissa Caruso, because the Castellanos are going to use them as leverage." "Already done. FBI has protective custody on everyone from the diner. As for the rest," Blackwood gestured toward the door. "Let's move. We have a situation room set up." They descended into the facility, moving through corridors that smelled of recycled air and fresh paint, past rooms filled with communications equipment and personnel working with the focused intensity of people who knew the stakes. The situation room was smaller than Lauren expected, just a conference table, several monitors, and a handful of people who all looked up when she entered. She recognized Colonel Matthews immediately. Agent Torres was there too, along with several others in military and civilian agency attire. "Captain," Matthews said, "glad you made it." Barely. Lauren lowered herself into a chair, her body finally demanding rest whether she wanted to give it or not. Somebody want to explain why a genetically modified bioweapon was being transported through civilian areas instead of by military aircraft in a secured container? Matthews and Blackwood exchanged looks. "The transport was compromised," Blackwood said carefully. "We had intelligence suggesting that someone inside the facility knew about the shipment. We were moving it off books to prevent interception." "How'd that work out?" "Obviously not well." Blackwood pulled up imagery on the main monitor, surveillance footage of a convoy being hit by what looked like a professional military operation. They knew the route, the timing, the vehicle configurations. This was an inside job from the start. "Who's the buyer?" Lauren asked. "We don't know. The Castellanos are the middlemen. They're brokering the sale to someone with very deep pockets and very dark intentions." Matthews pulled up another screen showing financial transaction records. "We've tracked partial payments through shell corporations across 5 countries. Whoever wants this weapon has nation-state level resources." Lauren studied the data, her tactical mind processing patterns and connections. If it's nation-state, why use criminals as intermediaries? Deniability. This goes sideways, it's organized crime acting independently, not a foreign government committing an act of war. Blackwood sat across from her. "Which brings us back to Tommy Breslin. He's the weak link in their chain, and now that you've made contact with him, you're our best chance of finding him before they do. He called me because I saved his girlfriend. He trusts me, or at least trusts me more than he trusts anyone else right now." Lauren looked at the assembled intelligence officers. "But he's terrified and probably in shock. Making contact again is going to be difficult." Torres, the FBI agent, not the wounded operator, leaned forward. "We've pulled his phone records. The call to you came from a burner, purchased 3 weeks ago with cash. No way to trace it directly. But we've been analyzing his social media, his credit card history, known associates." She pulled up a map of Rivermont on the main screen, dozens of location pins scattered across it. "These are places Tommy frequented in the 6 months before he disappeared. College campus, his apartment, several bars, a gym, Eddie's diner, where his girlfriend worked. Standard pattern for a 23-year-old with no major responsibilities." "Except somewhere in there, someone recruited him," Lauren said. "The Castellanos don't just grab random college kids for courier work. Someone vouched for him." "We're looking into his associates. Several have minor criminal records, possession, petty theft, nothing organized." Torres highlighted several names. "But one stands out. Marcus Petrov, Russian immigrant, works at an auto body shop that we've suspected of being a Castellano front for years." Lauren felt pieces clicking together. Petrov recruited Tommy. Probably made it sound easy. Quick cash for simple deliveries. By the time Tommy realized what he was actually involved in, he was in too deep to back out, until he made the mistake of opening a package he shouldn't have. Blackwood stood, pacing. "The question is where he'd go when everything fell apart. His apartment's been empty for 3 weeks. His family's in Florida and we've had them under surveillance. No contact. Friends claim they haven't heard from him." He's using cash, staying off grid, probably moving between locations. Lauren closed her eyes, thinking through the psychology. But he called me. That means he's reaching a breaking point. Fear of the Castellanos is warring with fear of what he's carrying. He knows it's dangerous, even if he doesn't know the specifics. So he wants to give it back, but he's afraid they'll kill him anyway. Exact. Lauren opened her eyes, which means we have a window. If I can make contact again, convince him that we can protect him. Her phone rang. Unknown number. Everyone in the room went silent. Lauren looked at Matthews, who nodded sharply. Tech specialists were already tracing the call, trying to lock down the location. She answered on speaker. "This is Hayes." Heavy breathing, then Tommy's voice, shaking worse than before. "Captain Hayes? I saw the news. The shooting at your apartment. Are you okay?" "I'm alive." "Where are you, Tommy?" "I can't. They're everywhere. I see their cars. I hear them asking about me. I can't sleep, can't eat, can't..." His voice cracked. "I'm so scared. I just wanted the money. I didn't know..." "Tommy, listen to me." Lauren kept her voice calm, authoritative, the tone she'd used with wounded soldiers who were slipping into shock. "I can help you, but I need you to trust me." "How? How can you possibly help? You saw what they did. They attacked you because of me. Because I called you. Everyone I touch, they get hurt. Tommy, what you're carrying is worse than you think. Much worse. If the wrong people get it, thousands of people could die. Do you understand? Thousands." Silence. Then quietly, "What is it?" "A weapon. Biological. If it's released, it could start a pandemic that makes COVID look like a common cold." She heard him start crying. "Oh no. Oh no, no, no. I thought it was drugs or guns or..." "Where is it, Tommy? Where did you hide it?" "I can't tell you. Not on the phone." "They're listening. They're always listening." Matthews was gesturing frantically. The trace was almost complete. "Then we need to meet," Lauren said. "Face to face. Somewhere public, somewhere safe. Bring the package, hand it over, and we'll put you in protective custody. New identity, new life, far away from all of this." "You promise? You promise they can't get to me?" "I promise." More silence. Lauren could hear him thinking, could almost feel his fear through the connection. "There's a place," he said finally, "where I used to go with Marissa, back before everything got complicated, before I screwed everything up. St. Catherine's Park near the old gazebo. Tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. Nobody's there that early. I'll be there. Come alone. If I see anyone else, anyone I don't recognize, I run, and you never find the package. Ever." The line went dead. Matthews immediately started issuing orders. "We got the trace. He's calling from the West Side District, probably a payphone or another burner. Get teams canvassing the area, but do it quietly. I don't want to spook him." Blackwood turned to Lauren. "You can't go to that meeting. You're injured, you're compromised, and Volkov knows your face. He'll have people watching the park. Which is why I have to go. Tommy trusts me. He doesn't trust anyone else. We'll send someone who looks like you. Similar build, he'll know. The second she opens her mouth, the second she moves wrong, he'll know." Lauren forced herself to stand despite her body's protests. "I'm going. You can have every sniper in the military covering me, but I'm the one walking into that park." Blackwood studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "You'll have full tactical support. Overwatch, concealed response teams, aerial surveillance. But Hayes, if this goes wrong, if Volkov makes his move, then a lot of people are going to die, and at least I'll have tried to stop it." She looked at the clock on the wall. 2,200 hours. 8 hours until the meeting. 8 hours to prepare for what would either save thousands of lives or end in catastrophic failure. And somewhere in Rivermont, Dmitry Volkov was making his own preparations, planning his own operation, hunting for the same target with resources that dwarfed anything Lauren had access to. The race was on, and only one side could win. The next 8 hours passed in a blur of preparation and pain management. A military physician examined Lauren's injuries with the detached efficiency of someone who'd treated combat wounds before. Separated shoulder requiring immediate reduction. 3 cracked ribs, severe ankle sprain, multiple contusions. He manipulated her shoulder back into socket without anesthesia because she needed to stay sharp, and the scream that tore from her throat echoed down the corridor outside the medical bay. "That's going to hurt for weeks," the doctor said, wrapping her torso in compression bandages that would stabilize the ribs. "You shouldn't be walking, let alone going into a hostile contact scenario." "Noted." Lauren gritted her teeth as he fitted a rigid ankle brace that would provide support, but limit mobility. "Can I shoot?" "Your right shoulder's intact, left arm stays in a sling, or you risk permanent nerve damage." He handed her a small bottle. "Ibuprofen. Take 4 now, 4 more in 6 hours. It'll take the edge off without compromising your reaction time." She dry swallowed the pills and let him finish the bandaging. When he was done, she looked like a walking casualty. Sling, brace, bandages visible beneath her borrowed tactical clothing. Not exactly the image of strength and competence she wanted to project. Matthews appeared in the doorway. "We need to talk about tomorrow's operation." They moved to a smaller briefing room where a 3-dimensional map of St. Catherine's Park filled the main display. The park was 60 acres of wooded trails, open fields, and the old gazebo Tommy had mentioned. A Victorian-era structure near the center, surrounded by mature oak trees that would provide cover but also concealment for potential threats. "We'll have 3 sniper teams positioned here, here, and here," Matthews said, highlighting elevated positions around the park perimeter. "Full coverage of the gazebo and approaches, aerial surveillance from a drone at 2,000 feet, undercover agents posing as morning joggers and dog walkers throughout the park." "Tommy said, 'Come alone,'" Lauren reminded him. "You will be alone at the meet point, but if Volkov makes his move, you'll have backup within 15 seconds. Matthews zoomed in on the gazebo. "The Russian's good, but he's not invisible. We'll spot him." "You're betting my life on that assumption." "I'm betting thousands of lives on preventing a bioweapon release." Matthews' expression hardened. "If you have a better option, I'm listening." She didn't. They both knew it. Blackwood entered carrying a tablet. "We've made progress on the Castellano investigation. FBI raided 3 of their properties an hour ago based on intel from the arrested kidnappers. Found evidence of weapons trafficking, drug distribution, and financial records that implicate 2 city council members and a state senator." "Good. But did you find anything about the bioweapons sale?" "Not directly, but we found communications between Marcus Castellano and a shell company registered in Cyprus, the same shell company that made the partial payment we tracked earlier." Blackwood pulled up encrypted messages. "They're using code phrases, but the pattern's clear. Castellano was brokering a sale with a buyer who has military-grade encryption and operational security. This isn't criminal enterprise. This is state-sponsored terrorism." Lauren studied the messages, noting the timestamps. "When's the exchange supposed to happen? Based on these communications? 48 hours from now, which means we have less than 2 days to recover the package before it disappears into a black market pipeline we can't trace." The pressure was building, visible in everyone's faces, audible in the tension of their voices. They were running out of time and options, betting everything on a traumatized kid showing up to a meeting that could easily be a trap. "What about Volkov?" Lauren asked. "Any sightings since the shipping yard?" "None, he's gone to ground." Matthews pulled up surveillance footage from various cameras around Rivermont. "But his team hasn't. We've identified 2 of his operators from the apartment assault. Both former Spetsnaz, both wanted by Interpol for various atrocities. They're staying at a hotel under false identities, but we have eyes on them." "Let me guess. You can't arrest them because you need them to lead you to Volkov." "Exactly. And if we move too early, we spook the entire operation and the bioweapon vanishes forever." Lauren felt the familiar weight of impossible tactical decisions. Every choice had consequences. Every action risked catastrophic failure. Her phone buzzed. Text message from an unknown number. "Atlas is awake and asking for you." She looked at Matthews. "I need to see my dog." "Hayes, 5 minutes. Then I'll review the tactical plan until my eyes bleed. But I need 5 minutes." He nodded reluctantly. The climate-controlled holding area was 2 floors down, a small room designed for working dogs with kennels, water bowls, and a veterinary station. Atlas sat in the largest kennel, his left front paw wrapped in bandages, his dark eyes tracking Lauren the moment she entered. She opened the kennel and he limped out, pressing against her legs with the careful restraint of a dog who knew his handler was injured. She knelt awkwardly with her braced ankle and wrapped her good arm around him. "Hey boy, we made it." Atlas licked her face once, then sat calmly while she checked his bandages. The veterinarian had done good work. The paw was splinted and wrapped, antibiotics administered, pain medication keeping him comfortable. "He'll make a full recovery," the vet said from across the room. "Hairline fracture from the jump, but clean. 6 weeks and he'll be running again." 6 weeks, an eternity in their current situation. Lauren rested her forehead against Atlas's neck, breathing in the familiar smell of his fur, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. In the chaos and violence and impossible stakes, this moment of simple connection was the only thing that felt real. "I'm sorry I put you through this," she whispered. Atlas huffed softly, as if to say it wasn't her fault. They were partners. This was the job. A knock on the door. Martinez stuck his head in. "Captain, you're going to want to see this." She gave Atlas a final pat and followed Martinez back to the briefing room, where the atmosphere had shifted from tense to electric. Everyone was staring at the main display where Agent Torres had pulled up new surveillance footage. "We just intercepted this from traffic cameras near the West Side District," Torres said, 30 minutes ago. The footage showed a young man, early 20s, disheveled, wearing a hoodie and carrying a backpack, moving quickly through alleys and side streets. The gait was wrong, constantly looking over his shoulder, the body language of someone who knew they were being hunted. Tommy Breslin. "He's still in the city," Matthews said. "Still mobile." Torres advanced the footage. "Watch." 2 blocks behind Tommy, moving with professional precision, were 3 men in civilian clothing who were very clearly not civilians. Their formation, their awareness, their movement patterns, all military training. "Volkov's team," Blackwood said quietly. They watched as Tommy ducked into an abandoned building. The 3 operators followed, spreading out to cover exits. Minutes passed. Then Tommy emerged from a different entrance, running now, and the operators reacted immediately, but he'd gained distance. "Smart kid," Martinez muttered, using the urban environment. "He won't stay ahead of them forever," Lauren said. "He's exhausted, scared, making mistakes. They're trained professionals who do this for a living." Torres fast-forwarded through several more camera feeds, tracking Tommy's movement through the city. Each time he thought he'd lost his pursuers, they reappeared, relentless, patient, closing the net incrementally. "Last confirmed sighting was 40 minutes ago," Torres said. "After that, he disappears. Either he found a secure location or they got him." Lauren studied the map of Tommy's route. "He's heading southeast toward the industrial district." Matthews zoomed in on the area. "Lots of abandoned buildings. Easy to hide, but also easy to get trapped." "We need to find him before the meeting," Blackwood said. "If Volkov gets to him first." Lauren's phone rang. Everyone froze. Same unknown number as before. She answered immediately. "Tommy?" His voice was barely a whisper, ragged with exhaustion and terror. "They almost got me. I saw them. 3 of them, working together, like wolves hunting." "Where are you right now?" "Hiding. I can't keep running. I'm so tired. I haven't slept in 2 days." "Every sound, every shadow." He broke down, sobbing. "I just want this to be over." "It will be. 6 a.m., the gazebo. Bring the package, hand it over, and you're done." "What if they follow me? What if they're there?" "We'll handle them. You have my word." Silence except for his ragged breathing. Then, "There's something else, something I didn't tell you before." Lauren felt ice forming in her stomach. "What?" "The package. It's not just 1 container. There were 2. I only took 1. The other, the Castellanos still have it." The room erupted. "Jesus Christ," Matthews swore. Blackwood was already on his phone, issuing rapid orders to someone on the other end. Lauren forced her voice to stay calm. "Tommy, where's the second container?" "I don't know. I just know there were 2 in the original shipment, identical. The manifest I saw listed them as A and B. I grabbed A because it was closer. B was already being loaded into a different vehicle." "What vehicle? What did it look like?" "Black van. No markings. 2 guys in suits. They didn't look like the usual Castellano muscle. They looked..." He paused, searching for words. "They looked government." Matthews and Blackwood exchanged looks that confirmed what Lauren was thinking. The inside job went deeper than they'd thought. Tommy, this is critical. Did you see who those men were? Any identifying features, badges, anything? No, wait. One of them dropped something. A phone or maybe a badge. When he picked it up, I saw... Tommy's voice caught. I saw a logo, like an eagle with arrows or something. Official looking. Federal seal, Matthews said quietly. Somewhere in the government chain, someone's working with the Castellanos. Lauren's mind raced through implications. If there were two containers and someone inside the federal system had the other one, then recovering Tommy's package wouldn't end the threat. It would only buy time while a compromised asset sat inside their own organization. Tommy, stay hidden. Don't move until morning. Can you do that? I think so. There's a storage unit I've been using. Nobody knows about it. I can wait there. Good. Tomorrow at 6, this ends, I promise. She disconnected and looked at the assembled officers. We have a bigger problem. Blackwood was already pulling up personnel files. If someone inside helps steal the shipment, we need to identify them before they disappear or activate the second container. The convoy was military, Matthews said. Limited personnel with access to route and cargo details. Maybe 30 people maximum. Start with anyone who had financial problems, family overseas, anything that could be leveraged for blackmail. Lauren moved to the display, studying the timeline. The convoy was hit 12 weeks ago. Look for personnel who've changed behavior since then. New purchases, travel patterns, communication anomalies. Torres was already running searches. I'll coordinate with counterintelligence. If there's a mole, we'll find them. But Lauren knew the math. Finding one compromised individual among thousands of federal employees and military personnel with only hours to work with was a nearly impossible task, unless they flipped the approach. We don't find the mole, she said slowly. We make the mole come to us. Matthews looked up. How? Tomorrow's meeting. Tommy shows up, hands over container A, and word spreads through official channels that we've recovered the bioweapon. Lauren outlined her thinking. If there's someone on the inside working with the Castellanos, they'll panic. They'll know their window is closing. They'll have to move the second container or risk it being discovered during the investigation. And we track whoever moves, Blackwood finished. It's risky. If they decide to destroy the evidence instead, they won't. That bioweapon is worth hundreds of millions to the right buyer, possibly billions if it's nation-state sponsored. They'll try to extract it. Lauren looked at each of them in turn. We set the trap at the park, recover container A, leak the success through classified channels. Then we watch who runs. Matthews nodded slowly. It could work. We'd need surveillance on every possible exit route from any federal facility that could store something that sensitive. NSA can handle electronic monitoring, Torres said. We watch for encrypted communications, unusual data transfers, anything that suggests someone's trying to coordinate an extraction. Blackwood checked his watch. We have 5 hours until the meet. Not enough time for a full counterintelligence operation, but enough to set up basic monitoring. He turned to Lauren. You understand that if this goes wrong, if Volkov gets container A and we don't identify the mole fast enough, then we have 2 bioweapon containers in hostile hands instead of 1. Yeah, I understand. And you still want to go through with it? Lauren thought about Tommy Breslin, terrified and exhausted, hiding in a storage unit and waiting for dawn. Thought about Marissa Caruso, who'd almost been kidnapped because her boyfriend made a stupid mistake. Thought about the thousands of people in Rivermont who had no idea their lives hung in the balance. I don't see another option that gives us better odds. Neither did they. The next 4 hours were a masterclass in military logistics and intelligence coordination. Sniper teams deployed to their positions under cover of darkness. Undercover agents received their assignments and dispersed throughout the park. The drone was launched and began its patrol pattern. Electronic surveillance locked onto every cell tower, every communication node within 5 miles of the meeting location. Lauren used the time to prepare herself mentally and physically. She reviewed the park layout until she could navigate it blind, practiced drawing her sidearm with her offhand since her left arm was immobilized. Ran through scenarios, best case, worst case, everything in between. At 0400 hours, she was as ready as she'd ever be. Martinez appeared with a tactical vest modified to fit over her injuries. It's not perfect, but it'll stop most small arms fire to center mass. She let him help her into it, wincing as the strap settled around her damaged ribs. Thanks. For what it's worth, what you're doing is either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. He checked the vest's fit. Probably both. Story of my military career, Ken. He smiled briefly. Rivera said you pulled him out of an ambush while you were bleeding from 3 different wounds. Said you refused evacuation until every member of your unit was accounted for. Rivera talks too much. He also said you were the best combat surgeon he ever worked with, that you saved more lives in one deployment than most doctors save in a career. Martinez met her eyes. So yeah, this is probably incredibly brave. Try not to get killed. The world needs more people willing to stand up when everyone else sits down. He left before she could respond. At 0530, they loaded into an unmarked vehicle. Lauren, Matthews, and 2 tactical operators who would drop her at the park entrance and then withdraw to observation positions. The drive through pre-dawn Rivermont was surreal, the city quiet and peaceful, unaware of the life-or-death operation unfolding in its midst. They parked 3 blocks from St. Catherine's Park. Lauren stepped out into cool morning air that smelled of dew and cut grass. Somewhere nearby, a bird began its morning song. Normal. Everything was so achingly normal. Comms check, Matthews said. Lauren touched the nearly invisible earpiece they'd fitted her with. Copy. Remember, 15 seconds to back up if things go wrong. Don't try to be a hero. Wouldn't dream of it. She walked toward the park entrance, her braced ankle making her gait uneven but manageable. The pain was a constant companion now, background noise she'd learned to ignore. The park gates were open. They always opened at dawn, and she entered the wooded paths alone. The gazebo was a 10-minute walk under normal circumstances. With her injuries, it took 15. She passed joggers who were exactly what they appeared to be, undercover agents doing a remarkable job of looking casual. A woman walking her golden retriever. A man doing Tai Chi near the pond. All of them armed, all of them watching her peripherally. The gazebo came into view through the trees. Victorian ironwork and weathered wood, beautiful in the soft morning light. Empty. Lauren climbed the 3 steps and positioned herself with her back to the structure's solid side, giving her a view of the approaches while minimizing her exposure. She checked her watch. 0558. 2 minutes. The park was coming alive with morning activity. More joggers. A group doing yoga on the lawn. An elderly man feeding ducks at the pond. All innocent civilian activity or the best surveillance operation Lauren had ever seen. Probably both. Movement in the tree line to her left. A young man emerged, walking slowly, his body language broadcasting fear and exhaustion. Tommy Breslin looked worse than his surveillance photos. Hollow-eyed, unshaven, clothes that hadn't been changed in days. He carried a backpack that seemed heavier than it should be. He saw Lauren and stopped, scanning the area with paranoid intensity. "It's okay," Lauren called softly. "Just us." Tommy took a tentative step forward, then another. He was crying, tears streaming down his face unchecked. "I'm so sorry. For everything, for what I did, for dragging you into this, for... Save it, just bring me the package." He climbed the gazebo steps and set the backpack down with exaggerated care. "It's in there. I wrapped it in foam padding, kept it temperature controlled like the labels said. I never opened it, never touched it directly." Lauren knelt awkwardly and unzipped the backpack. Inside, wrapped in protective foam, was a cylindrical container about the size of a thermos. Military markings, biohazard warnings, sealed with tamper-evident locks that appeared intact. Container A. "Good job keeping it secure," she said. Tommy collapsed onto the gazebo bench, his hands shaking. "What happens now?" "Now you come with me. We get you into protective custody, new identity, everything we promised." "And Marissa? Is she safe?" "FBI has her and her father in a secure location. When this is over, if you want to see her, we can arrange it." His face crumpled with relief and grief. "I don't deserve her. I don't deserve any of this." "You made a mistake. You're fixing it. That counts for something." Lauren's earpiece crackled. Matthew's voice, urgent. "We have movement. East perimeter. 3 individuals matching Volkov's team description. Moving toward your position." Her hand moved to her sidearm. How long? 90 seconds. Get out now. She grabbed the backpack with her good hand. Tommy, we need to move. Now. But Tommy wasn't looking at her. He was staring past her, his face draining of color. Lauren turned. A man stood at the base of the gazebo steps. Late 40s, gray hair, expensive suit. He smiled pleasantly, like someone greeting an old friend. Captain Hayes, how nice to finally meet you in person. Not Volkov. Someone else. Someone whose face Lauren recognized from the briefing files. Marcus Castellano. And behind him, emerging from the tree line in coordinated positions, were at least a dozen armed men. The backup agents scattered throughout the park were already reacting, but they were outnumbered and caught in a crossfire situation with civilians nearby. Marcus climbed the gazebo steps slowly, casually, like he had all the time in the world. You've caused me significant problems, Captain. My men arrested, my operations disrupted, my reputation damaged. Do you have any idea how much money you've cost me? Lauren's hand was on her weapon, but drawing would trigger a firefight that would kill everyone in the immediate area. Your operation's over, Castellano. Federal agents have warrants for your entire organization. True, which is why I'm here personally to recover my property before I retire to somewhere without extradition treaties. He nodded toward the backpack. That belongs to me, or rather to my buyer. Either way, you're giving it back. Not happening. Then a lot of people die. Starting with young Tommy here. Marcus produced a pistol with practiced ease, aiming it at Tommy's head. Then the woman doing yoga on the lawn, then the man feeding ducks, then you. And I still take my property and leave. Lauren's tactical mind ran scenarios at lightning speed. She couldn't outdraw him, couldn't protect Tommy, and engage simultaneously. Backup was pinned down by his security team. The snipers couldn't take a shot without risking civilian casualties. She was out of options. Except one. You can't use it, she said quietly. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Excuse me? The bioweapon. You can't use it without the activation codes. And those codes are locked in a military database that requires biometric authentication to access. She was bluffing, making up technical details, but selling it with absolute confidence. Container A is worthless without Container B, and Container B is worthless without the codes. Your buyer knows this, which means you're trying to deliver an inert product. Something flickered in Marcus's expression. Doubt, confusion. You're lying. Am I? Ask your buyer. Ask them why they insisted on both containers. Ask them why the price was contingent on verified activation capability. Lauren took a calculated risk. You're not brokering a bioweapon sale, you're brokering your own execution. Because when you deliver an inert container, your buyer is going to realize they've been scammed. And people with that kind of money don't forgive scammers. Marcus's gun hand wavered slightly. In her earpiece, Matthews whispered, "Keep him talking, we're flanking." The person who has Container B, Lauren continued, didn't tell you about the activation requirements, did they? They let you think recovering Container A would complete the package. But they're playing you, Castellano, setting you up to take the fall while they keep the real product. Who? Marcus demanded. Who has the second container? That's classified, but I can tell you this, they're federal inside the system, and they're gonna let you die holding an empty box while they sell the real weapon. Marcus's face went through a series of expressions, disbelief, calculation, and finally, cold fury. He lowered his weapon slightly, his attention divided. It was the opening Lauren needed. She drew and fired in one motion, her offhand shot catching Marcus in the shoulder and spinning him around. His weapon discharged into the gazebo floor as he fell. Then everything happened at once. The undercover agents engaged Castellano's security team. Gunfire erupted across the park. Civilians screamed and ran. The tactical operators who'd been flanking burst from cover, advancing with military precision. And from the east perimeter, Dmitry Volkov's team opened fire on everyone. Lauren grabbed Tommy and dragged him behind the gazebo's solid railing as bullets tore through the ironwork above their heads. The backpack with Container A was between them, and she clutched it like her life depended on it, because thousands of lives did. Marcus Castellano was down but not out, crawling toward his dropped weapon while blood poured from his shoulder wound. Lauren kicked the gun away and zip-tied his hands with restraints she'd carried for exactly this purpose. "You shot me," he gasped, genuinely shocked. You pointed a gun at an innocent kid. Be glad I aimed for your shoulder." The firefight raged around them. Volkov's team was advancing through the chaos, using the confusion to close distance. They weren't here to arrest anyone. They were here to recover the container and eliminate witnesses, professional, ruthless, exactly what Lauren expected from FSB-trained operators. Matthew's voice in her ear, "Extraction team inbound, 30 seconds. Can you hold?" "Negative. We're pinned down and they're closing." "Then get ready to run. We're coming in hot." A helicopter roared over the tree line. Military transport. Door gunner already engaging targets on the ground. The heavy weapons fire forced Volkov's team to break off their advance and take cover. The helicopter didn't land. It hovered 10 feet above the gazebo, and Martinez leaned out with a harness and cable. "Hayes, hook up!" She clipped the backpack to her tactical vest, then grabbed Tommy. "Hold on to me and don't let go!" He wrapped his arms around her waist, and she signaled Martinez. The cable lifted them both off the gazebo floor as bullets sparked off the helicopter's armored plating. Lauren's damaged shoulder screamed in protest as the harness took their combined weight, but she held on, holding Tommy, holding the container, holding on to everything that mattered. They were pulled into the helicopter and it banked hard, accelerating away from the park. Below, federal agents were surrounding the remaining hostiles. Marcus Castellano was being loaded into an ambulance under armed guard. The civilians were being evacuated by local police who'd finally arrived in force. And somewhere in the chaos, Dmitry Volkov watched it all fall apart. Lauren lay on the helicopter deck, gasping for breath, her entire body one massive bruise. Tommy was beside her, sobbing with relief. The backpack was secure. Container A was recovered. But as the helicopter flew toward the secure facility, Lauren's mind was already moving to the next problem. Container B was still out there, and whoever had it had just watched their competition get neutralized, which meant they'd be moving, soon. Her phone buzzed, text from an unknown number. She opened it with shaking hands. "Well played, Captain. You've recovered one half of the problem. But the real game is just beginning, and this time you won't see me coming. No signature. No identifying information. Just a promise." And Lauren knew, with cold certainty, that the mole had just made their move. The helicopter touched down on the secure facility's rooftop at 0743, and Lauren was moving before the rotors stopped spinning. She handed the backpack containing Container A to a hazmat team waiting with a sealed transport case, watched them verify the biohazard seals were intact, and then followed Matthews into the building at a pace her injuries didn't appreciate but her urgency demanded. "We need to trace that message," she said, showing him her phone. "Whoever sent it knows we recovered the container. They're watching our communications, or they have someone inside this operation." Matthews took the phone and handed it to a signals intelligence specialist who appeared from nowhere. "Run a full trace. I want origin point, routing path, and any metadata you can pull." "Sir, if they're sophisticated enough to penetrate our security, then work faster." They entered the operations center to controlled chaos. Multiple screens displayed surveillance feeds, personnel files, communication intercepts. Blackwood stood at the center like a conductor managing an orchestra, directing resources and demanding answers. "Status on Marcus Castellano?" Lauren asked. "In custody? Stable condition? Already lawyered up." Blackwood didn't look away from the screens. "But his phone records are a goldmine. We've identified communications with 17 different individuals inside federal agencies. Most are probably innocent contacts, but we're running down every single one." "That'll take days. We don't have days." "I'm aware." Blackwood finally turned to face her. "Which is why we're taking a different approach. We're going to make the mole come to us, just like you suggested. But we need bait they can't resist." Torres appeared, looking like she hadn't slept in 36 hours. "We leaked the container recovery through 3 different classified channels. NSA is monitoring for any unusual activity in response." "How long until—" Lauren started. "Already happening." Torres pulled up a screen showing data intercepts. "We've detected encrypted communications from inside the Pentagon, the CIA, and the Department of Energy, all within the last 20 minutes, all using non-standard encryption protocols." Matthews leaned closer. "Can we decrypt them?" "Working on it. But the very fact that someone's using private encryption instead of official secure channels tells us something's wrong." Torres highlighted one particular intercept. This one originated from the Department of Energy, from someone with access to classified research facilities. Blackwood's expression hardened. The DOE manages some of our most sensitive bioweapon research and storage. If someone there has Container B, then they have the facilities to activate it, weaponize it, and deploy it without anyone knowing until it's too late. Lauren felt pieces clicking into place with terrible clarity. We need a list of everyone in the DOE with both security clearance for bioweapons research and access to the convoy's route information. The specialist who'd taken her phone looked up. Captain Hayes, I traced your message. It bounced through 17 different proxy servers across 4 continents, but I backtracked the original transmission point. Where? A cell tower 3 miles from this facility, sent 45 minutes ago. He pulled up a map. Whoever sent it was close. Very close. The implications hit like a physical blow. Someone with real-time knowledge of the operation. Someone who knew exactly when Container A was recovered. Someone who was confident enough to send a taunting message from nearby. Pull security footage from the perimeter, Matthews ordered. Every camera, every checkpoint, everyone who came or went in the last hour. While the team worked, Lauren's tactical mind ran through scenarios. The mole had to be someone with deep access, high enough clearance to know about classified operations, connected enough to coordinate with the Castellanos and Volkov, ruthless enough to sell a bioweapon. That narrowed the field, but not enough. Blackwood's phone rang. He answered, listened, and his face went pale. Are you certain? Yes. Lock down the building. Nobody in or out. I'm on my way. He disconnected and looked at Matthews and Lauren. The Department of Energy just reported a security breach at their Level 4 biocontainment facility in Virginia. One of their senior researchers accessed a restricted vault 3 hours ago using emergency override codes. The vault contained backup samples from the original bioweapon project. Container B, Lauren said. Worse. They have Container B plus additional samples, enough to produce thousands of doses. Blackwood was already moving toward the door. The researcher's name is Dr. Richard Vance, 30-year veteran, impeccable record, top secret clearance, and he hasn't been seen since he left the facility. Torres pulled up Vance's file on screen. Mid-60s, distinguished career, multiple commendations. The kind of person who would never be suspected. The perfect mole. Financial records? Lauren asked. Torres was already searching. Nothing obvious, modest salary, appropriate savings, no major expenditures, but she stopped, zooming in on something. His daughter, 28 years old, diagnosed with stage 4 lymphoma 2 years ago. Experimental treatment in Switzerland that costs $500,000 per session. The motive crystallized. Not greed, desperation. A father trying to save his child. Where is she now? Matthews asked. According to medical records, she's been in remission for 6 months. Treatment was successful. Torres looked up. But the bills show that someone paid for it. Someone with very deep pockets. The buyer, Lauren said. They've been funding her treatment in exchange for Vance's cooperation. Blackwood grabbed his keys. We need to find him before he delivers that bioweapon. If it reaches international waters or leaves the country, he won't run, Lauren interrupted. Everyone looked at her. Think about it. He's been inside the system for 30 years. He knows how we operate. He knows that the moment we connected him to the breach, every airport, every border crossing, every port would be locked down. He can't leave the country. Then what's his play? Matthews asked. Lauren thought about the message on her phone. The confidence, the proximity to their facility. He's not running. He's delivering, and he's doing it locally. The buyer is here, Blackwood said. In Rivermont? Has to be. Volkov was here to provide security for the exchange. Marcus Castellano was the middleman. Everything converged on this city because this is where the sale was supposed to happen. Lauren moved to the map display, studying Rivermont's layout. Vance has the bioweapon. He has a buyer waiting. All he needs is a secure location to complete the exchange. Torres started pulling up data. Known Castellano properties. We've already raided most of them, but not a Castellano property. Too obvious, somewhere neutral, somewhere that wouldn't raise suspicion if federal personnel were present. Lauren's mind raced through possibilities. A research facility, a university lab, somewhere with legitimate biocontainment equipment that would explain Vance's presence. Matthews snapped his fingers. Rivermont University has a Level 3 biocontainment lab. They do contract work for the DOE. Vance would have legitimate access as an inspector or consultant. Pull up the facility's security footage, Blackwood ordered. It took 90 seconds. When the footage loaded, it showed Dr. Richard Vance entering the university lab 40 minutes earlier, carrying a secure transport case and showing credentials to the security guard who waved him through without question. "He's there right now," Torres said. "Do we have assets in position?" Not enough for a biocontainment breach scenario. Blackwood was already on his phone calling in tactical teams. "We need hazmat, containment specialists, and enough firepower to secure the area. 20 minutes minimum." Lauren looked at the clock. "We don't have 20 minutes. If the buyer is meeting him there, the exchange could be happening right now. Then we wait and intercept when they leave. And risk the bioweapon leaving the facility in a container we can't track?" Lauren shook her head. "I'm going in. Hayes, you're injured, exhausted, and you don't have backup. I'm also the only person in this room who's actually handled that bioweapon container. I know what I'm looking for." She was already moving toward the equipment lockers. "Give me comms and a hazmat suit. I'll go in as a safety inspector, verify the situation, and maintain visual contact until your teams arrive." Matthews started to argue, but Blackwood cut him off. "She's right. We need eyes inside before we commit to an assault. Hayes," he fixed her with a hard stare. "You observe and report. You do not engage. Clear?" Crystal. 20 minutes later, Lauren was pulling into Rivermont University's research complex dressed in a hazmat suit with DOE inspector credentials that the intelligence team had fabricated in record time. Her injuries screamed protest beneath the protective gear, but she'd taken more ibuprofen than was probably safe and wrapped her ribs tight enough to limit movement. Atlas was with her again. The veterinarian had cleared him for light duty despite his bandaged paw, and she needed the backup. More importantly, she needed the partner who'd never let her down. The security guard at the research building barely glanced at her credentials. "Dr. Vance is already here. Said he was expecting DOE oversight. You can head straight to Lab 4. "Thank you." She took the elevator down 2 levels to the biocontainment wing, Atlas padding quietly beside her. The hallway was empty, sterile, lit with fluorescent lights that hummed softly. Through the observation windows, she could see various labs, empty at this early hour except for automated equipment running experiments. Lab 4 was at the end of the corridor. Through the observation window, Lauren could see Dr. Vance working at a sealed containment unit. He wore a full hazmat suit, his movements precise and practiced. On the workstation beside him sat 2 cylindrical containers, Container B and whatever additional samples he'd taken from the DOE vault. But he wasn't alone. 2 figures in civilian clothing stood on the far side of the lab, watching him work. One was a tall man with military bearing who spoke into a phone periodically. The other was shorter, stockier, and very clearly armed despite the lab's security protocols. The buyer and his security. Lauren keyed her comms. "Matthews, I have eyes on Vance and 2 hostiles in Lab 4. Bioweapon containers are visible. Vance appears to be preparing them for transport." "Copy. Teams are 10 minutes out. Do not engage." She moved closer to the observation window, studying the scene. Vance's body language was wrong. Stiff, nervous, not the confidence of someone completing a lucrative sale. His hands shook slightly as he worked, and he kept glancing at the 2 men like he was afraid of them. This wasn't a willing transaction anymore. Something had changed. The taller man said something and Vance flinched. Then he carefully placed both containers into a specialized transport case, sealing it with biometric locks. The shorter man drew his weapon. Lauren's hand went to her sidearm as understanding hit. They weren't here to pay Vance. They were here to eliminate him and take the bioweapon without leaving loose ends. "Matthews, situation just escalated. They're going to kill Vance." "Stand down, Hayes. That's an order." But Lauren was already moving. She couldn't watch another person die because she made the tactical decision instead of the human one. She hit the lab's emergency access override, a safety feature designed to allow rescue teams into contaminated areas, and the door hissed open. Atlas surged through first, 70 pounds of trained aggression launching at the armed man before he could process the threat. The dog's jaws clamped onto the gunman's wrist and he screamed, his weapon clattering across the lab floor. Lauren came through next, her own weapon drawn. "Federal agent! On the ground now! The taller man reached for something inside his jacket, and she put 2 rounds into the wall beside his head. Don't! He froze, hands visible. Vance stumbled backward, eyes wide behind his hazmat mask. Who are you? Captain Lauren Hayes. I'm here to stop this sale. She kept her weapon trained on the tall man. Kick your phone toward me, slowly. He complied, his expression calculating rather than frightened. You're making a mistake, Captain. You have no idea what you're interfering with. Enlighten me. That bioweapon represents the next evolution of warfare. Precision population control, strategic denial of territory without infrastructure damage. He spoke like he was pitching a product. My clients will pay $50 million for this technology, enough to fund entire revolution movements, enough to reshape geopolitical landscapes. Your clients? Lauren kept her aim steady. Who are you? Someone who sees opportunities where others see threats. He smiled coldly. And someone with enough connections to make you disappear if you don't walk away right now. Atlas growled, still pinning the other man to the floor. Lauren looked at Dr. Vance. Is this what you wanted? To sell a weapon that could kill millions so your daughter could live? Vance's face crumpled. They said they'd just study it. Reverse engineer a cure for her cancer. I didn't know they wanted to weaponize it further. I didn't know... He broke down, sliding down the wall. I just wanted to save my daughter. You did save her. The treatment worked. She's in remission. Lauren kept one eye on the tall man. But these people don't care about medical research. They care about power. And you gave it to them. I know. Vance's voice was barely a whisper. I know what I've done. The people who could die because I was weak. Because I chose one life over thousands. The tall man laughed. How touching, but ultimately irrelevant. My associates know I'm here. If I don't walk out with that case in the next 5 minutes, they'll execute contingency plans that will make this little drama seem trivial. What contingency plans? Let's just say your precious recovery of Container A was anticipated, and that we have alternative sources for the material we need. He checked his watch with exaggerated casualness. 3 minutes now. Perhaps you should consider your priorities, Captain. Lauren's mind raced. He was bluffing, had to be. But there was enough confidence in his voice to plant doubt. Her earpiece crackled. Matthews, urgent. Hayes, we've intercepted communications. Multiple targets moving on the university hospital. They're going after the patient samples from Mercy General, your hospital. Some of your COVID patients had hemorrhagic fever antibodies from experimental treatments last year. If they get those samples, the pieces fell into catastrophic place. This had never been just about the military bioweapon. It was about creating their own from medical research already in the civilian system. Research that was easier to access, harder to secure, and completely legal to study until someone weaponized it. Where's Volkov? Lauren demanded. The tall man smiled, completing the real transaction while you waste time here. Lauren made a decision that went against every order she'd been given. She looked at Vance. Can you neutralize those containers? Make them inert? Yes. There's a thermal destabilization protocol. It would break down the viral structure completely within 90 seconds. Do it, now. But my daughter, they said if I didn't deliver, your daughter is in FBI protective custody as of 30 minutes ago. She's safe. These people have no leverage over you anymore. Lauren hoped that was true. Hoped that someone in the alphabet soup of federal agencies had been smart enough to secure Vance's family. Make this right. Destroy what you created. Vance looked at the containers, at the transport case, at the 2 men who'd turned him into a traitor. Then he moved to the containment unit and began entering commands. The tall man lunged for the transport case. Lauren shot him in the leg. He went down screaming, and Atlas left the first gunman to pin the second, teeth at his throat, daring him to move. Neutralization sequence initiated, Vance said, his voice stronger now. 90 seconds to complete sterilization. Lauren keyed her comms. Matthews, Volkov is targeting the hospital. Mercy General. He's after patient samples from the experimental hemorrhagic fever treatments. You need to divert all available units there right now. We're already moving. Torres anticipated the possibility and had a team standing by. Matthews paused. Hayes, you disobeyed a direct order. Court-martial me later. Right now, stop Volkov. She could hear it through the comms, tactical teams mobilizing, vehicles racing through Rivermont streets, the controlled chaos of a major operation deploying at speed. The containment unit beeped, green lights across the display. "Sterilization complete," Vance announced. "The bioweapon is inert, completely neutralized." Lauren felt tension she hadn't known she was carrying bleed out of her shoulders. One threat eliminated, but the bigger one was still active. "Matthews, what's the status at Mercy General?" Static, then gunfire in the background. Then Matthews' voice, tight with concentration. "We've engaged hostiles in the research wing. Volkov's team hit the facility with military precision, but we were waiting. It's going to get messy. I'm on my way." "Negative. Secure your location and—" Lauren was already running. She left Atlas guarding the two wounded men. Neither was going anywhere with 70 pounds of trained aggression watching them, and sprinted for her vehicle. Her ankles screamed protest. Her ribs felt like they were grinding together. Her shoulder throbbed with every heartbeat. She ran anyway. Mercy General Hospital was 12 minutes from the university at legal speeds. Lauren made it in 7, running red lights and using her emergency credentials to bypass traffic. She could see smoke rising from the hospital's east wing before she even reached the parking lot. The scene was controlled chaos. Police had established a perimeter. SWAT teams were preparing to breach. Paramedics were treating wounded security guards who'd been hit in the initial assault. Lauren found Matthews coordinating from a mobile command center. Status? Volkov's team penetrated the research wing and secured the sample storage. 3 of his operators are holding the position while he extracts the materials. "We've got the building locked down, but he's threatening to execute hostages if we breach." "How many hostages?" 6, lab technicians who were working early shift. Lauren looked at the hospital building, 4 stories, multiple wings, hundreds of windows. She knew this place. Had worked here for 8 months. Knew the layout, the procedures, the people. "The research wing has a secondary access point," she said. "Service corridor used for equipment deliveries. It's locked from inside, but the ventilation system connects to the main building." Matthews pulled up building schematics. "You're talking about crawling through HVAC ducts?" "I'm talking about getting behind Volkov's position before he knows I'm there." Lauren was already gearing up, ignoring her injuries, running on pure determination. "Give me 15 minutes, then initiate breach from the front. He'll be focused on your entry team, won't expect approach from behind." "Hayes, you can barely walk." "Then it's a good thing I'm crawling." She didn't wait for approval, didn't wait for backup, just moved because people she'd worked with for 8 months were being held at gunpoint, and every second spent planning was a second they remained in danger. The service corridor entrance was exactly where she remembered, a maintenance door on the building's north side. She picked the lock with tools from her tactical kit and slipped inside, closing the door silently behind her. The corridor was dark, lit only by emergency lighting. She moved by feel and memory, finding the ventilation access panel and removing it with practiced efficiency. The duct beyond was narrow, barely wide enough for her to fit, and the thought of crawling through it with cracked ribs made her want to vomit. She crawled anyway. Every movement was agony. Every breath sent fire through her torso. But she'd learned long ago that pain was temporary and failure was permanent, so she pushed forward through the darkness, following the air currents and distant voices that echoed through the metal shaft. After what felt like hours but was probably 10 minutes, she reached a vent that overlooked the research wing's main laboratory. Through the grate, she could see the scene below. 6 lab technicians huddled in the corner, their hands zip-tied, terror on their faces. 3 of Volkov's operators stood guard, weapons ready, professional and alert. And at the central workstation, Dmitry Volkov himself worked with surgical precision, transferring patient samples from storage into a specialized transport container. The samples glowed faintly under UV light. Antibodies, plasma, genetic material from patients who'd survived experimental treatments. Not a weapon yet. But with the right expertise, the right facilities, these samples could be reverse engineered into something terrible. Volkov spoke into a radio. "Package is secure. Initiating extraction sequence." One of his operators responded in Russian, then said in accented English, "Federal teams are preparing to breach. 3 minutes maximum." "More than enough." Volkov sealed the transport container and attached it to a tactical harness. "Execute the hostages. Leave no witnesses." Lauren's blood ran cold. The 3 operators raised their weapons. She kicked out the vent grate and dropped through the opening before conscious thought could stop her. The fall was 8 feet, and she landed hard, her ankle giving out completely, but she was already firing as she hit the ground. First operator went down with 2 rounds center mass. Second turned toward her and caught a bullet in the shoulder. Third got his weapon up and managed 1 shot that sparked off the floor beside her before she put him down. Volkov spun, drawing his sidearm with the fluid speed of someone who'd done this 1,000 times. But Lauren was faster, barely, painfully, desperately faster. Her shot caught his weapon hand and the gun flew across the room. He didn't stop, didn't hesitate, just came at her with the cold efficiency of a trained killer, closing the distance before she could fire again. They went down in a tangle of limbs and violence. Lauren's injuries betrayed her. Her left arm was useless. Her ribs screamed. Her ankle couldn't support weight. But she'd learned to fight in worse conditions, against better opponents, in places where losing meant death. She used his momentum against him, rolled with his attack, brought her knee up into his solar plexus. He grunted but didn't slow, his hands going for her throat with killing intent. Lauren blocked, twisted, and drove her elbow into his temple with everything she had left. Volkov's eyes went unfocused, and he collapsed. She zip-tied him with shaking hands, then turned to the hostages. "Is anyone hurt?" They shook their heads, too shocked to speak. The breach team crashed through the main doors 30 seconds later, weapons raised, clearing the room with tactical precision. They found Lauren sitting against the wall, breathing hard, surrounded by unconscious or wounded hostiles, the transport container secure beside her. Matthews appeared in the doorway, took in the scene, and swore softly. "I specifically told you not to engage. I had to get creative. You disobeyed multiple direct orders, endangered yourself, compromised the operation. I saved 6 lives and secured the bioweapon samples." Lauren tried to stand and her legs gave out. Martinez caught her before she hit the floor. "How'd I do?" Matthews tried to maintain his stern expression, but failed. "Recklessly, heroically, exactly as advertised." He looked at the secured hostiles. Volkov's going to face charges in about 15 different jurisdictions. Marcus Castellano is already rolling on his organization to reduce his sentence. Dr. Vance has offered full cooperation in exchange for leniency. "It's over, Hayes. You won." Lauren looked at the lab technicians being checked by paramedics, at the secured bioweapon samples that would be destroyed rather than weaponized, at the unconscious form of a man who'd killed dozens across multiple continents and would finally face justice. "We won," she corrected. "All of us." The next 72 hours passed in a blur of debriefings, medical treatment, and media coverage that Lauren tried desperately to avoid. The official story released to the press was sanitized. Federal task force breaks up terrorist plot, several arrests, no casualties, investigation ongoing. The details about bioweapons and international conspiracy remained classified, but the unofficial story spread through different channels. At Mercy General Hospital, where Lauren was required to spend 48 hours under observation for her injuries, the staff treated her differently. Not with the distant professionalism she'd experienced before, but with genuine respect. Nurses who'd barely acknowledged her existence now stopped to thank her. Doctors who'd dismissed her as just another ER nurse now understood she was something else entirely. Eddie's Diner became a focal point for media attention, which Eddie handled with characteristic Brooklyn bluntness, telling reporters that the quiet nurse in the corner booth had always been welcome and always would be, and if they wanted to know more, they could buy breakfast or leave. Marissa visited Lauren in the hospital, bringing flowers and tears. "I don't know how to thank you. For saving me, for saving my dad, for..." She broke down completely. Lauren took her hand with her good arm. "You don't owe me anything, just promise me something." "Anything. When you finish nursing school, when you're working in an ER somewhere, and you see someone who needs help, someone everyone else is ignoring or dismissing or looking past, you speak up. You stand up. You be the person who goes first." Marissa nodded, understanding. "I promise." Tommy Breslin was in federal protective custody, cooperating fully with investigators, facing charges that would likely result in probation given his cooperation and circumstances. Lauren received a letter from him through official channels, handwritten, sincere, apologizing for everything and thanking her for giving him a second chance. She didn't respond. Some things didn't need words. On the third day, Blackwood and Matthews visited her hospital room with official-looking documents. "Captain Hayes," Blackwood began formally, "the United States government would like to extend an offer. Based on your performance during this operation, we believe you could be a valuable asset to Joint Special Operations Command, specifically to a unit that handles threats that fall between conventional military action and civilian law enforcement." Lauren looked at the documents without picking them up. "What kind of unit?" "The kind that doesn't officially exist. The kind that operates in the gray areas where bureaucracy fails and speed matters. You'd have resources, support, the ability to make a real difference." Matthews leaned forward. "You'd be doing what you do best, standing up when everyone else sits down." "And my cover as a nurse?" "You'd maintain it. Rivermont becomes your home base, Mercy General your day job. But when we need you, and we will need you, you deploy. Handle situations that require your unique combination of medical expertise and tactical capability." Lauren thought about the quiet life she'd been trying to build. The apartment with no photographs, the careful anonymity, the exhausting effort of pretending to be normal. Then she thought about the 6 lab technicians she'd saved, about Marissa, about the thousands of people who would never know how close they'd come to a pandemic that would have killed most of them. "I need conditions," she said. "Name them." "Atlas stays with me. Non-negotiable." "Done. I maintain final authority on operations involving civilian populations. I won't execute missions that put innocent people at risk for political objectives." Blackwood and Matthews exchanged glances. "That's a harder sell to the brass." "Then they can find someone else." A pause. Then Blackwood nodded. "Agreed, with the understanding that we'll debate what constitutes acceptable risk on a case-by-case basis." "Fair." Lauren looked at the documents again. "One more thing, Dr. Vance's daughter. Whatever happens to him legally, she keeps getting her medical care. She doesn't pay for her father's mistakes. Already arranged. She's been transferred to Walter Reed with full coverage for ongoing treatment and monitoring." Lauren finally picked up the documents and signed without reading them. She'd learned long ago that service meant accepting terms you couldn't fully control in exchange for the ability to make a difference when it mattered most. "Welcome back to the fight, Captain," Blackwood said, shaking her hand. 2 weeks later, Lauren returned to work at Mercy General. She walked through the emergency room doors in her scrubs and comfortable shoes. Her injuries mostly healed, her clearance to return to active duty signed by 3 different physicians. The ER was its usual controlled chaos. Ambulances arriving, patients in various states of crisis, staff moving with practiced efficiency. Dr. Patricia Morrison, the ER chief who'd barely spoken to Lauren in 8 months, approached immediately. "Hayes, good to have you back." "Thank you, Dr. Morrison. I read the official reports. Classified details redacted, but enough to understand you did something extraordinary." Morrison's usual stern expression softened slightly. "I also owe you an apology. I dismissed you as just another competent nurse. I didn't look deeper, didn't ask questions, didn't recognize what was right in front of me. You had no reason to. That's not an excuse. I should have seen that you were overqualified for the position. Should have wondered why someone with your obvious skills was content with basic ER work." Morrison extended her hand. "From now on, when you speak in trauma scenarios, I listen. When you suggest protocols, I pay attention. Clear?" Lauren shook her hand. "Clear." She took her assigned station and fell into the familiar rhythm of emergency medicine. Triage, assessment, treatment, stabilization. Lives saved in increments too small for headlines, but enormous to the people experiencing them. During her lunch break, she went to the cafeteria and found her usual table. Atlas lay beneath it, his paw fully healed, his dark eyes watching the room with calm vigilance. She was halfway through her sandwich when a shadow fell across the table. "Mind if I sit?" Lauren looked up. A young woman in surgical scrubs stood there holding a tray. First-year resident, if the nervous energy was any indication. "Sure." The resident sat. "I'm Dr. Sarah Kim. Started last week. I heard about what happened. Well, the unclassified version anyway. Wanted to say thank you for what you did, for standing up. Just doing my job." "No." Kim's voice was firm. "What you did was beyond job requirements. Way beyond. And it mattered. I grew up in Rivermont. My whole family lives here. If that bioweapon had been released, she stopped, composing herself. Anyway, thank you, and if you ever need anything, I'm here. She left before Lauren could respond. Similar encounters happened throughout the day. Staff members expressing gratitude, respect replacing indifference, recognition replacing invisibility. At the end of her shift, Lauren walked out to her car to find Eddie waiting beside it. He held a paper bag that smelled like fresh-baked bread and coffee. "Figured you'd be hungry," he said. "On the house. Forever. I meant what I said." "Eddie, you don't have to." "Yeah, I do. You saved my daughter's life. You saved my life. You saved a lot of people who'll never know it." He handed her the bag. "This is a small thing. Let me do small things." She accepted the bag. "Thank you." Marissa starts her clinical rotations next month. She requested Mercy General specifically, said she wanted to work with the best. Eddie smiled. "That's you, in case it wasn't clear." He left before she could respond to that either. Lauren drove home as the sun set over Rivermont, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. The city looked different now. Not because it had changed, but because she had. She wasn't hiding anymore, wasn't pretending to be something less than she was. She was exactly who she'd always been. The difference was that people saw it now. Her phone buzzed, text from Matthews. "Situation developing in Seattle. Potential bioterror threat. Need your expertise. Can you deploy in 48 hours? She typed back, "Affirmative. Send briefing materials." Because this was her life now. Emergency room nurse by day. Operational asset by night. The person who stood up when everyone else sat down. The person who'd learned that being underestimated was sometimes an advantage, but being recognized was always better. She pulled into her apartment complex, and Atlas bounded out of the car, eager for his evening routine. As she followed him up the stairs, Lauren thought about the journey from that morning in the diner, the moment when 3 men had made the mistake of thinking a tired nurse in scrubs couldn't possibly be a threat. They'd learned otherwise. The whole city had learned otherwise. And now, whenever someone in Rivermont told the story of the quiet nurse who saved thousands of lives, who faced down terrorists and dismantled a bioweapon conspiracy, who proved that heroism didn't announce itself with fanfare, but revealed itself in the moment when action was required. They told it with respect, with understanding, with the recognition that sometimes the most powerful people in the room are the ones nobody notices until the moment they stand up and change everything. Lauren Hayes unlocked her apartment door, fed Atlas, and settled onto her couch with Eddie's bag of food and Martinez's encrypted briefing file on the Seattle situation. She had 48 hours before her next deployment. She intended to use them well, because she'd spent 8 months trying to be invisible, trying to blend in, trying to forget who she was and what she was capable of. Never again. From now on, she'd be exactly who she was meant to be. A healer and a warrior, a professional and a protector, someone who'd earned her quiet life but would never hesitate to defend it when the moment demanded action. The nurse in the corner booth, who turned out to be so much more, and who would keep proving it, one saved life at a time, for as long as she drew breath.